Troy, Mac Parker. Ever hear of Planet of the Apes?
The movie or the planet?
The brand new multi-million-dollar musical. And you are starring as the human.
It's the part I was born to play, baby.
Help, the human's about to escape.
Get your paws off me, you dirty ape.
He can talk. He can talk, 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 he can talk.
I can sing.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. Like a doll's eyes.
I love this town!
Hello, City! Welcome, everyone, to City of Geek podcast. We are back here again after another couple weeks and talking about one of the things that really drives all of us here. Our cars. No. I'm the only one here with the car.
That's just you. The
I
rest
know.
of us are public. Well,
I take you people places.
the rest of us, because Cody's not here.
No. Yeah, so we just have myself. That's
Speaking
Bob.
of which,
We didn't work out our... All right, that's okay.
give me a note. We're trying to be extra clever and do...
We were going to do... Fuck you.
Cody. I didn't know about this at all. Plus, you guys don't want to hear me sing. So, even though I've been in a couple musicals, but usually because it's community theater and they need it.
That is our theme.
We're talking about musicals, mostly on screen, but could be on stage.
Probably start heavily in the horror. And
yeah,
see
a lot
where
of
it
horror,
goes.
weird stuff, but we didn't really set any parameters when it comes to that. Before we started recording, we talked about a couple of different parameters, and just to see where things go. But Cody is not with us tonight because it is really wet and rainy out because we are in the Pacific Northwest, and it was just safer for him not to come up from Tacoma tonight to join us. But before we before we start talking about a little bit about horror and other musicals, that's a little housekeeping there. Crypticon, our good friends there, have announced a couple of different guests. Last time we talked about Crypticon, we had mentioned him for the last couple of episodes. Elvira returns.
Yeah.
Cassandra Peterson coming back for her second time through.
Ooh, freaking...
Actually,
You left out a letter.
It will be her third time.
Third time.
That's
Okay,
right.
third time, yeah.
Because
I wasn't at the first.
Humble Brag Alert, I interviewed her the last 2 times.
Yeah, she came to the first one, right? Or was it the Everett Garage one?
No, it was not the Everett Garage
Okay.
one. I mean, she may have been even, a couple of times before. The first time I talked to her was in, I want to say 13 or 14, and then I interviewed her in 17, and, who knows?
But you've heard to go, it's not Booyah, it's Boobyah. We're talking about Elvira, for fuck's sake.
But,
you have to make the jokes.
You shouldn't, I should. Let's put it that way.
Only...
It's Elvira. Be respectful, Bob. Be respectful.
And then we also have, I think we might have mentioned last time, but Billy and Lisa Zane are joining us as
which is
well.
great, yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm really excited for that. I got my skin-tight Phantom costume ready to go. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's not going all.
Jesus, Bob.
Promises. Something for the Instagram.
And no dance belt. And then we are 8 episodes in on Kim's other podcast. 7.
I think we just released episodes 7. She said, I should know this. Hold on. Now,
It's
yeah,
okay.
Well, yeah. We just because Jake Bird was episode 6.
Okay, so yeah, we're at 7.
And episode 7 is the Legends and Truths of the Myrtles Plantation. So if you are interested in hearing about some ghosts and some true crime and some legends and lore all wrapped into one delightful package, you can find us on Ghoulish Tendencies.
Ghoulish Tendencies.
So go over and subscribe to them, and subscribe to us if you haven't yet. If you are listening to this for the first time or just here and there, don't forget to go to cityofgeek.com to find out everything else we're working on, our reviews, our retrospectives. Just as we move through things, Kim put up a wonderful article about getting people into horror recently. So it's not just reviews. So we have that going on. If you if you like our podcast, give us a 5-star review on iTunes and a movie title, and I will watch it. I can't say about these guys. We got our first one. We do have a bunch of 5-star reviews, but we got a first written review, and that was from Eric from Strange Eons Radio.
That's lovely.
And I stole the idea from him where I watched that movie because that's where I got that from.
Yeah.
So I rated him the other day and gave them Panic in the Year Zero, and then Eric gave me Resolution from 2012. From the guys who made Endless, which I haven't seen.
I was gonna say,
I've owned that movie forever, but I haven't actually watched it.
I saw that years ago, and it's great.
I'll be watching it soon. I was hoping to watch it before this podcast.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that movie. Mm-hmm. But then I'm a big fan of
I was gonna say, I'm a big fan
those
of theirs,
directors anyway.
Moorhead and the other one. Names.
That's it. Moorhead and the other one.
Yeah. The other one loves that.
In the film, Moorhead and the other one. The other one in Moorhead. I haven't even started drinking my whiskey yet, and I'm already punchy. This is what happens when I've been teaching all day.
Yeah, it's almost 10 o'clock, and we've all been out and about all day.
That's you.
Because it is a little later, we do have a shorter schedule, so maybe I'll go in as much detail as I normally do. So if you're interested in us continuing to talk about musicals, if we haven't covered everything, let us know, and we can do a part 2 of this episode as well. Musicals is a very wide genre.
Is indeed.
It can cover everything under the sun as long as you start singing at some point. And it also includes things that include music without actually being a direct musical as well. Various things can cover that. Well, one particular...
give me an example. I'm trying to see what you mean.
One particular horror title that is linked with music wasn't a musical until the famous musical until the 1980s, which Phantom of the Opera. But it has music in it.
It has music. Well, but it's not.
But it isn't a direct musical until...
it wasn't a direct musical until Weber, and there's another version called Phantom.
Yeah, which Allison really loves.
I actually really enjoy it too. It follows what there's a movie version that it follows really closely. It was a made-for-TV movie that was out in the, I want to say, the 80s, and the storyline of Phantom the Musical follows that version closely.
Is that the one with Charles Dance?
I believe so.
Yes.
It's the two-parter.
1990.
Yeah.
Terry
90. Okay.
Polo plays Christine.
So they follow each other pretty closely, or maybe that movie was taking its inspiration from the Phantom. I'd have to look which came out first, but it did not become a musical until those. And there's a third version that's not very good. That was produced in New York off Broadway for a stretch. Anyway.
But I was saying, if we're talking about anything just about music in various ways,
in there. That's not a musical.
Yeah, I don't know. But
it's
there's anything particular you wanted to cover in that case at the
But that's still not a musical.
Yes. But
I'm just saying, it's not even. I mean, it's opera too. They're talking about opera and classical music, which are not actually musicals strictly.
Fair.
There's a difference between a musical and an opera. You can have a rock opera, you can have a metal opera, but a musical and opera are different.
So actually, there's a rock opera that's popped in my head that's on my list until you mentioned it there. But they often get, at least at Blockbuster, put in there for our ages.
But again, Phantom of the Opera
for the unwashed
is not...
masses, it's necessary to do that.
I'm sticking on Phantom of the Opera because it was not a musical until it was.
Yeah.
And so, just because it was there's a lot of movies that have been made about a theater, but by that philosophy, Macbeth is a musical. Like, that's, it does have some singing in it. That one, you're not going to sell me on that.
It does more of an end to get fandom talked about. Of course, you mentioned at some point anyway.
It's still not a musical till it was.
But anyway, so what is, so just to get things rolling there, Kim, what is your favorite musical?
Do you mean my favorite musical of all time?
I
was going to say that's a loaded question, Bob.
I know. That can bring in so many things. What's your favorite? What's most important to you? But just give us a ball to get the song to get the ball rolling.
So full disclosure, the very first musical I ever got into when I was 7, 8 years old was Phantom of the Opera. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera, and I will say I spent a period of time where I was obsessed with anything that was related to Phantom of the Opera, which is how I got into Phantom, and then later Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes.
Which is probably, it's one of my favorite movies, full stop. But it is definitely one of my favorite movie musicals. I very much kind of get obsessed with the musical and run it to death.
No wonder you and my wife get along so well.
That's kind of that's the nature of a theater nerd. We have stuff that's near and dear to our heart always, but we're always searching for that next fix, So like I have my musical obsessions of the moment. Like, I'm obsessed currently with the musical Six, which is about Henry VIII's 6 wives.
I just listened to that the other day.
It's
I got it
fucking
from the library.
awesome. I love it. And it's, anyway. So, yeah, theater geek. Anyway, someone else talk.
Well, I come from an interesting standpoint because I'm not as smitten with musicals as I think both of you are. And so for me, I tend to be a lot pickier about musicals. And I think part of that is just because my sonic upbringing, as it were, was sort of self-taught musically, and my bedrock was basically punk rock and new wave. And so for me, to a great degree, I often found musicals to be treacly and pretty insufferable. But I am less dogmatic in my advanced years.
You just aren't listening to the right things.
Well, this is the thing. My favorite, my litmus test for a really good musical is if you cut out all the musical numbers, would the movie still be an engaging watch? And so by that rather narrow, admittedly, litmus test, my favorite musical of all time, and I think one of what I would call one of the 7 or 8 perfect films ever made, is Singin' in the Rain. I've always
classic.
adored that film. Because not only does it have a bunch of wonderful toe-tapping songs in it, and actually what's really crazy about it is it's basically a jukebox musical. It is an early jukebox musical because the majority of the songs in it were not composed for the movie.
True.
The actual song Singin' in the Rain is 20 years old at the time that the movie was
I'll trust
made.
you on that.
Yeah, something about
You were there.
Yeah, it was. It was
Oh! You're picking up Cody's slack, Bob.
Fuck you, I mean Bob. But yeah, I mean, I just once you cut out all the musical numbers, Singin' in the Rain is also a very funny and very trenchant commentary on Hollywood and on the fickleness of technological and structural change in Hollywood. It just works wonderfully on that level, and it's just big and bright and beautiful, and it has an absolutely enchanting movie star couple in Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds. It's got Donald O'Connor defying gravity. It's got Gene Hagen's, balloon squeak of a voice defying gravity. I just really think from stem to stern, it's one of the few movies that will always make me feel better about the universe when I watch it.
Can I ask you with your litmus test about 2 specific ones, just because I'm curious where they stand then?
Yes.
Because neither one would hold up for very specific reasons.
Yes.
One of them being Jesus Christ Superstar.
I do like Jesus Christ Superstar.
Because if you cut out all the music in that, you got nothing.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I would say that
because it's a rock opera.
It's a rock opera.
It's a rock
exactly.
opera.
Well, and this is the thing. That's the thing. It rocks.
And the Who's Tommy.
Which is the one I
The Who's
realized
Tommy?
that
Ken
was on the
Russell.
list.
Ken Russell's Tommy. You're hitting my pleasure.
But this is what I'm saying is that I feel like you're not listening to the right things if that's your litmus test. Because there's musical theater is not just musicals. Full stop. We're talking movies as well as musical theater, but it's not just Oklahoma and Rodgers and Hammerstein. In fact, it's far from it. And there's some really exciting things that have been happening through the last couple decades, particularly in fringe theater, where you're getting some really interesting shows. But before that, the tradition of rock music on stage, I mean, you've got Hair, Jesus Christ Superstar, you've got The Who's Tommy, you've got... so many that I could just start listing them, but I won't. There's a lot more than just your we're gonna stand here and sing about corn, because that's and I say this as a theater nerd. I don't like that kind of musical for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Rodgers and Hammerstein fan. I like some of their stuff. I don't like some of their other stuff. Some of their things have just not aged particularly well. But it's a very narrow stretch of theater time to look at only those as your litmus test.
And that's interesting about bringing that up is I feel that's how a lot of people approach musicals. Like, I don't like people to stop and start singing. It's like from the person on the outside who doesn't really like the genre. I think that's how they see musicals. In the same way that we get mad at people who say, horror's only slasher movies.
Yeah.
Torture porn.
who
That's
identify that one
that is the dead
sliver.
horse that is flogged by civilians.
And for that, and for musicals, it's Roger and Hammerstein style.
Which is, again, a very narrow... It's you've got a chunk of decades where you're getting musicals, but you have so much more that was also coming before, coming after. You have some things that were very progressive, albeit now maybe haven't aged well, but Porgy and Bess, like looking into musical theater history, now it's a very problematic show, but at the time, it was one of the few musicals that was written with African American characters.
Well,
I've never
and
actually seen any version.
Well, it actually straddles the line between opera and musical because it's put on by opera companies.
Yeah. But it's from a time period when we were straddling that line. Like you had your Gilbert and Sullivan, and you had these light operas in some cases.
Yes.
But that's where you have that kind of crossover with musical theater and opera.
Yeah.
Bob, we've kind of like trounced all
it's
over
all right.
yours, so I'm sorry. This is a subject.
So I want to keep it from being just like I'm listing a title in like 4 lines and moving to the next thing. Having a conversation, I think, is better just to listen to this rather than this list I can put in Google and coming up with something.
That's true.
Because you can just Google what horror musicals, weird musicals, good musicals, but if we have the conversation, I think that really flows a lot better. But I if we're talking about musicals, I have to bring up something that comes up for me every time we have a conversation, which of course is Rocky Horror. The defining movie of my life, as we talked about a couple episodes ago. So you can find that podcast when we talk about the movies that defined us and made us who we are. That kind of was the before and after of a lot of my life. Met my wife,
Rocky, post-Rocky,
opening myself out and stuff like that, and its sequel, Shock Treatment. But the two of those often get mixed together with Phantom of the Paradise. They all came 74 for Phantom of the Paradise, 75 for Rocky, 73 on stage. And
stylistically, there are similarities. Yeah.
Shock Treatment's 80, 81, depending on how you look at it. But Phantom and you kind of see, like, not officially, but like, Phantom's often linked with Rocky, at least in the community. It's like the next movie.
Well, it's cult, too. Yeah. It's cult films.
Both those based upon existing horror properties in various ways.
Phantom of the Paradise I find slightly more coherent in its storytelling,
which is saying a lot.
Saying something, and I don't think that is a dig to Rocky
because I think Phantom of the Paradise goes wonderfully off the rails by the end.
Yes,
absolutely batshit.
I still want to know the timeline of that movie. And it's one of those things where I just kind of for Phantom of the Paradise, kind of like, this show wouldn't have worked. How many shows are they doing? Is it doing the one and closing down? But that's the whole thing where when I watch a movie like that, it's like, how are you, like, I always wonder if fan the opera. I was like, how many times are they doing this show?
Although a lot of
do we open it once and close it?
No, that's actually, operas a lot of times have a very, very tiny amount of performances because you often only have certain performers who know the opera. So, because learning an opera is, this is...
No, and this is actually
him nerding out.
Well, no, and actually, as someone who worked at an opera company for many years, I am very aware of the mechanics involved in creating and sustaining an opera, and how it is a bit. Well, no, it's a lot more tenuous to create and perform an opera than it is like a musical.
It's a very different process.
Yeah.
And musicals are designed, if you're looking at something on stage specifically, they're designed to have X amount of shows a week, and you have to give actors one day off.
Yeah.
Which used to be Mondays. Mondays theaters used to be dark. Anymore, that's not entirely true. Some theaters are dark on Mondays, but not all, especially when you're looking at professional theater on Broadway.
But when you're talking about, like, opera, a lot of the times the singing is even more demanding, and there's more of it, and so
less shows,
and so there are fewer shows. Yeah,
this makes sense. But we went off the rails again. But
movie musicals,
movie musicals, yes.
Before Rocky Horror has been like the seminal cult musical, seminal like cult film of the last 50
it's
years.
It's very interesting, kind of contemplating kind of the line in the sand that occurred before rock and roll and after rock and roll, because obviously rock and roll was a seismic cultural movement in the wake of Elvis Presley, and it sent shockwaves through a lot of traditional media, including, as it happens, the musical. And of course, shortly after Elvis Presley's ascension to the top of the charts in the pop culture firmament, you got Bye Bye Birdie, which was actually Conrad Birdie was, of course, based on Conway Twitty, who was a rockabilly singer prior to becoming a country singer. So you have that. And then, but it seemed to me, and again, Kim, maybe you could speak to this, it seemed to me that rock musicals / operas did not become a super prominent thing until, I want to say, was Hair kind of the flashpoint for that, or was there something before that?
I think it's
God's-
early 70s.
Yeah, well, because you have Hair, you've got Godspell coming out
Right around the same time.
Right around the same time, which is not quite as... It's, again, kind of the same vein as Hair, story-wise, not at all, and with 100% less nudity on stage, at least all the productions that I've seen. But in that kind of folksy rock, Jesus as an icon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jesus is a long-haired hippie.
Jesus is a long-haired hippie.
And the way it's presented on stage is like... so like, well, I'll talk about the movie. I mean, the movie making a stage out of it and everything. Sorry, I just kind of.
Well, and that's an interesting one where you're getting into some of these movie musical adaptions where again, like Jesus Christ Superstar being an excellent example, in that the movie version takes a really specific viewpoint in how they present it. You've got the van showing up and everyone getting out. You've got gigantic hats that are fabulous. But it's not something that's super grounded in realism.
Yeah.
Where the stage show, I've seen so many variations on how it's performed now.
Yeah, I've never seen it on stage, so I can't. Besides the live show they did a couple years
I've only
years
seen
ago.
the film myself.
I've never seen it performed on stage the same way. It's the show I see cross-gendered a lot.
Just recently, Cornish did cross-gender
Well,
last year.
I mean, I think I've seen 3 cross-gender productions of it. It's a very popular thing. It's an easy show to cross-gender, partially because there's so many male parts.
Yeah.
And you tend to have female-heavy programs in colleges, so it's a really popular one for colleges to cross-gender.
So I've seen Godspell switched a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, we're in kind of the last 10 years or so. Cross-gendering theater has become trendy. It's always been it's been a thing for years.
Well, and
but
it's interesting that it's become reversed since the age of Shakespeare.
But I mean, even if you look at the early late 1800s, early 1900s, you did have women playing it, particularly in Shakespeare.
A lot of patrons. Well, and in opera, actually, for that matter, yeah.
But I mean, the famous actresses of the time taking on, I'm going to take on Hamlet, I'm going to take on Macbeth. We're not in the theater, and I think it's bullshit. The curse, sorry. I get crap from some actors because I say Macbeth, and
we're not in
the theater. It's dumb to say the Scottish play when you're in your home. But
if lightning strikes this building and we all die, I blame you.
The amount of times I've said Macbeth and not died is like I'd see Candyman at this point before I'd see Macbeth. So. Anyway.
Oh, anyway, this is making me think of Life of Brian. And I just want to stop where I go, Jehovah. Rest in peace, Terry Jones.
Yes. Which I was going to mention at the beginning of the podcast, and I forgot, so thank you for the reminder. But I do want to say one final thing on Shock Treatment before we go. With Rocky and Shocky. Shock Treatment is a mess of a movie because the actor strike and things getting cut, and so it became a weird plot. But I think the music in Shock Treatment is better than the music in Rocky Horror. But when it comes to like all 3 of those, Phantom of the Paradise is so damn good. Paul Williams is all over my list.
Man.
Like he's in like 7 different things on my listing here.
Williams. I adore his music. I adore him.
He's just a swell guy.
He's a swell guy.
He, the fan of the Paradise pin that I've worn on occasion. He's bought, like, my friend Jay, which I've mentioned on our website a couple of times. He makes those, and Paul Williams has bought like 70 of them.
Oh, that's lovely.
He keeps buying them every time he goes to a new city. But,
I finally bought one from. I can't remember if you told us it was available again. It's such a cool pin. If you're a fan of the Paradise fan, it's amazing.
Yeah, they only have a couple left, so it's Signal 13 pens, and this is will flip and has the
little Winslow mask. Yeah.
Somebody needs to make an action pin of Beef getting electrocuted.
That'd be great.
By the
Garrett
lightning
was
bolt.
awesome.
Or him with the plunger.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I know difference between drug real.
Drug real, I'm real.
But when it comes to Paul Williams, there's a wonderful musical that not a lot of people have seen or know about that besides if Tony does, but Bugsy Malone. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, yeah.
My theater's done it
Directed
before.
by Alan Parker
Yeah.
of Angel Heart and Midnight Express fame.
Starring
Starring that fascist
Scott Baio.
Scott Baio
With Jodie Foster.
and the
Jodie
not
Foster.
fascist Jodie Foster. It is a lot of fun.
1976, I think.
Yeah,
76.
yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And it's one of those very interesting movies that it's all... Well, the shtick is it's a gangster movie in the 30s Warner Brothers style, but all of the characters played by preteen kids.
Yeah.
And instead of using guns, they throw pies at each
They
other.
throw pies at each other.
And the music's in there is great. It's got a wonderful style to it. It's
silly. It's fun.
silly. Yeah, but if you haven't seen Bugsy Malone, check that out because it's something I want. Like it's like the third thing in the list. And like we have to mention Bugsy.
It's one that I like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a little bit since I've seen it. I mean, like, I think I first saw it as a kid. It's very kid
I
appropriate.
haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in like 10 years. So it's
Yeah,
not risky.
I-
I own
I-
it. I've been wanting to rewatch
Well,
it. But
my theater did it, so I'm assuming it's kid appropriate. Of course, we also did the Who's Tommy a few years ago. So,
Well,
you know.
it was released in theaters with a PG rating.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I thought it was like
So it's not quite G, and I think that's mainly because it's about crime. It's
Yeah,
about criminals, even though they're played by kids and they use pies and pie guns instead of actual machine guns. But yeah,
But it's a pretty kid friendly.
yeah,
it's
that's
quite kid friendly, and it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of affection to it. There's a lot of affection in terms of the gangster tropes, and the Paul Williams songs are kind of adorable.
as they often are. 'Cause he's
Yeah.
great. He also did
Absolutely.
like most of the Muppet movies.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
musicals as
And
well.
he did the song in The Secret of Nim.
Oh yeah.
I will say that what I find interesting, some of the musicals we've been talking about were movie musicals. That's how they originated. Fan of the Paradise, again, being another example, it's a
And
movie
Bugsy
that,
Malone. Yeah.
that started out as a musical movie, and in some cases later became a stage show. But Rocky started out as a stage show.
Yeah, 1973.
But something that I find in general, it is rare to find particularly contemporary movies that have been well translated from stage to screen.
I would agree with that.
I think there's a small handful in the last 20 years that have transitioned from stage to screen well.
Yeah, because that's what I'm actually like. The Indian Heights trailer is really good. Hopefully, the movie itself will be. I'm kind of concerned.
I'm reserving judgment until I see it.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes you wonder about like they've been trying to make Wicked forever. They're
gonna
talking
be
about
bad.
Hamilton.
It's gonna be.
I don't think either of them are
Hamilton,
really
the
gonna,
original cast, at least is coming back, but that did nothing for the producers.
Yeah, which I liked when I first saw it, and it's soured over time.
Because I'm sorry. Well, part of it is that they replaced Ula, the with Uma Thurman, who is not Ula. No, I mean I think Chicago. I think the film adaptation with Chicago was successful partially because they took a very distinct point of view on how they presented it, with having that movie in her minds.
Which I hated when I first saw it for that reason, and now I've come around to that. So it's reverse.
Because it's I mean, is it different from the stage show? Yes. Is it the only way I think it makes it work as a movie? Yes. Because it justifies the bursting out and just, and that's the hardest thing on film. Like when they did the Les Mis a couple years ago with Hugh Jackman, and they tried to do it, with the live orchestra playing in their ear, and it's awful. It is awful. And some of this is also you're not casting theater people, you're casting actors.
Celebrities. Actors,
You're casting celebrities.
It's stunt casting is what it
And I mean,
is.
Hugh Jackman is legitimately capable musical theater actor.
Started that way too. So yeah.
And they had I think the Eponine was a stage actor.
Who had played Eponine.
And you could tell because she comes into the scene and you're like, oh, hey, somebody who gets it.
Which weird is Russell Crowe being so bad now because he started out on stage actually. Like one of his first roles was playing Eddie and Frank and Rocky Horror in Australia in the 90s, and then he just not translate to this movie.
Oh god, he was awful.
Yeah, it's like I'm not saying he's good in it. No, I'm saying but he started on with stage musicals as well. Some of it though
it
doesn't match. He doesn't really match Javier.
Well, I was gonna say too, if you're playing a character in Rocky, and I mean this not in a derogatory way, but Rocky is a very different style of musical than Les Mis, which again is really more opera in style. It's almost entirely sung, and it's a 3-act show. It's not a rock show, and if you're used to singing rock shows, please don't go do Les Mis. That's not. They're not. I mean, they are not the same thing.
I would agree.
But like I think similarly, Rent is another example of
Rent.
One that just
I don't like it as a
work.
show, and don't like it even more as a movie.
Nostalgically, I like it as a show because it was again. I got into it when I was like 13 or 14, and so it was very much a show that meant a lot to me when I was a teenager. I remember seeing it when it came to Seattle, and it was just like, artists! Oh, New York! This is speaking to me! Because, I'm 14. That's what...
Goddamn right it is.
But it's... We all have those, a lot of my teens, Dear Evan Hansen was that for them.
I do not like that movie. That show, I mean.
I like some of the songs, but I don't get it myself.
But I don't like it.
But I don't think I'm their key demographic. So you have, each generation has that. Spring Awakening for a while was one. That one, though, I genuinely think is very, very good.
I've never seen it. I've listened to it, but I haven't seen it.
It's on stage. It's really interesting. I've seen it. I saw it on Broadway. I saw a local production of it that did some different stuff with it. It was excellent each time. But you do have these... Oh, this is another one that's... I mean, for me, this is a horror film, and that's Mamma Mia. But I also hate the stage show. I think it's a piece of shit.
I hate Mamma Mia 1. I kind of like the sequel.
I didn't see it because I didn't want to do that to myself.
I saw the second one in a state of insobriety on an airplane flying back from Amsterdam. And so my memories of the second one are not very vivid. My memories of the first one are very vivid, which I also coincidentally enough saw on a plane en route to a place. And I just thought it was ghastly. So
yeah, I think it's just an awfully made movie generally.
It's an awfully made show. Yeah, most jukebox musicals are. I'm going to say that.
I haven't even seen Rock of Ages.
I am so. And this is the thing. And again, it's good to have a couple of musical nerds here because my opinion of musicals has been carved by largely by the pre-rock kind of Rodgers and Hammerstein pieces, and also the absolute glut of jukebox musicals that have proliferated in the last 10 or 15 years.
Because they're easy money makers.
Yeah, exactly.
They're banking on although a lot of them fail. I will say, I've been listening to the Alanis Morissette musical.
Oh, I remember it existing. I haven't known anything after they announced it.
You ought to know.
You ought to know.
Isn't it ironic that I haven't listened to it? No, it's not.
Well, part of it is that I haven't actually bothered to look up what the plot is because I kind of wanted to see if I could figure it out just from listening to it. I can't. I have no idea what's going on. And that's just it. I think Jersey Boys as a musical...
Didn't see it out of the form.
The movie's horrible, but the musical is it's fine because they're taking the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and they're telling it with their music, as opposed to, we're going to take a story and fit ABBA into it. We're going to take a story and put the Beach Boys music in it.
And here comes Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
I mentioned this before, I think, in another episode, but I'm going to say it again. I'm still mad at my dad. 15, 16 years later... It must have been 16 years because it was the year that is right before my mom passed, which we went to New York because she had never been. She wanted to go before she died. And we're standing in line at TKTS and I'm talking about what to see and what to do. And I did all this research my dad asked me to do. I looked at all the plots, looked at this, and all the reviews. And the one thing we all, except my dad, wanted to see was anything but Moving Out. But my dad's trying to get us to see Moving Out. Oh, you guys like Billy Joel? I was like, yeah, but we can go see this. We can go see
But
this.
I can
we can
listen
go
to
see
Billy
this.
Joel.
And then we go and we like my mom, my brother, and I get some food. Yeah, Times Square Sbarro. We did it because it was close.
I'm
And
judging you.
I'm
I'm judging you.
My mom is very weak. We can
All
only
right.
move in little
I'm
areas.
not judging you again.
And we came back, and my dad just bought the tickets to Moving Out.
Ah!
One of the few times I've seen my mom get like really angry. She usually was rarely slow to anger, and she was like, "What's the one thing I said?"
What did I say?
Oh, good lord.
So I'm sad that the first Broadway musical I ever saw on Broadway was Moving Out.
I'm sad for you.
But I've seen other things
and
since
I've
then.
never seen a musical on Broadway.
But
One of the things that I wanted, when we first brought up this topic, one of the things that I wanted to talk about that I found most fascinating was this 4-movie stretch of film musicals that were obviously fueled by cocaine.
Did Stephen King write them?
And they were actually written by various different parties.
see what one I can guess which one.
So we're talking about, and I'm not sure if I have the chronology right on this. We're talking about Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band,
It's on here.
Yep.
Xanadu,
Yeah, it's on my list.
Can't Stop the Music,
Yeah.
I know it exists.
and The Apple.
I can't believe I forgot the
The
apple.
apple is so weird.
God damn it! I can't believe I forgot the fucking apple. It's my favorite movie.
Believe you me, I did not forget the fucking
So
Apple.
weird.
You are listening to a man who owns a mint vinyl copy of the Apple.
You
soundtrack.
showed it to us when
Thank
you were over
you.
here. I was
Yes,
like,
when
I cannot believe it. They printed those and then they broke the screen because people were throwing them at the screen in a preview.
Yeah, I really, and my intrigue in the Apple started, and I'll date myself hideously by this, when it first hit theaters in 1980. I was, I think, 12, and I was reading. I had just started reading film criticism, and my first. One of the first film critics that I read a lot of was a guy named William Arnold, who wrote for the Seattle PI, and he wrote a review of this movie, The Apple, and stated in the review that this is the worst film I have ever seen.
Yeah,
that was like
right.
catnip for my ass, and so unfortunately, it was gone from theaters before I had a chance to see it, and I never got a chance to catch it on VHS. And it was one of those movies that kind of lived in sort of trash movie mythos for decades.
Yeah, because I'm a huge fan of cult film, and I have been forever, and I didn't get to see it until a couple years ago.
Thank you. I mean,
it was just sliding along elsewhere, like in the
Yeah.
right spot. MGM put out a DVD, but like a
Yeah.
really small release until recently.
And that was actually how I got it. Ironically enough, in like 2005, I impulse bought the DVD of The Apple, and I have been forever changed. It is absolutely fascinating. The history behind it is fascinating too, because it was at that point when the movie was made, it was financed and produced by Golan Globus, Canon Pictures, who of course became a fixture in 80s trash cinema. But at that point in time, they had experienced enough financial momentum to where they thought that they would take a big gamble, and Menachem Golan decided he wanted to do a musical and take a chance on it and do a musical. And
Take a chance on me.
Mamma Mia! Mamma Mia!
Here we go again.
But yeah,
If you have to let it go.
Yeah, if you have not seen The Apple, The Apple is basically a coked-up, disco-fied version of the Adam and Eve story, in which two kids from Moose Jaw, Canada, win an American Idol / Top of the Pops type TV show and become seduced by fame. And it's all set in what's basically sort of a dystopian world. It's kind of like
1994.
Yeah, the distant future of 1994,
AKA an airport in West Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
Or East Germany. Fuck, I don't know.
And it's just absolutely fascinating. I mean, I likened it when I first saw it. I likened it to a musical that might have been done by Ed Wood if somebody had given him like $1 million and cocaine instead of alcohol, because it really has that. It has that kind of just disjointed, strange, totally wrong-headed quality to it in a glorious way. I mean, it's, for better or for worse, it is full on. It is a 110% full on effort. The people who are making it are not half-assing it, in the sense that they're pouring 110% of something into it. I would say cocaine.
And one of the early roles for Mary Stuart Matheson.
That's right.
Before Night of the Comet and Catherine Mary Stewart. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's blah 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 blah. Catherine Mary Stewart.
Three
names.
names.
I was gonna say they're like
similar names. Oh, Irish
there
names.
Yeah. And also, there is a tiny little cameo in one of the dance sequences by one Finola Hughes, who ended up playing the lead in another crappy 80s musical. Bless you. Staying Alive.
Oh, yeah.
She had the lead in that and also became a soap opera star of note. She's in one of the numbers. And we were originally talking about this being horror musicals. There's a number that is set in sort of a disco horror environ, where you have characters running around in animal masks and Finola Hughes with a lot of eye makeup.
And an actual vampire.
Yes. Oh God, it's me. And some of the most insanely and inanely catchy songs ever. I mean, the opening track, "Do the Bim," and of course, it makes really ham-fisted attempts at kind of lampooning the record/entertainment industry, because instead of BMI, it's BIM. Is the giant multinational, and also it features an absolutely jaw-dropping villain performance by a Russian actor named Vladek Sheybal. Who?
It's a villain name, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Who plays Mr. Boogaloo, who is the Mephistopheles figure in the film. It's one of those movies where describing the plot doesn't do justice of the experience itself, because the movie is so from Dimension X, and the closing sequence and musical number. I don't even want to describe it. I just want people to see it.
Yeah, go check. You can find it easily. Now, there's a riff track, so you can, if you can't find it on disc, you can probably stream it somewhere, or you go to rifftracks.com and because their version is the one with the movie plus them synced up to it already, so you don't have to find it separately. So it is out there now and available.
In addition to the MGM UA DVD, which I think is out of print, I believe Arrow Video, of all people, actually put out a high-def version of this with a few more extras.
Yeah, I have it on Blu-ray with the commentary and a look behind the scenes. The American one, then I think the Arrow one is UK only, or can be imported. Yeah, because they didn't put out the one that I own.
But anyway, that one's insane. But it's really interesting because you had this whole spate of musicals that I think they came out in such rapid succession. It was too late for each respective maker of each film to realize that they were on a train that was going off of a cliff.
Yeah.
And one of the most fascinating ones is "Can't Stop the Music," which was meant to be which was meant to be like the star-making musical vehicle for the Village People. And what was fascinating about that is when that movie first began production in 1978, the Village People were on top of the world. They had multiple top 10 singles. They had 2 platinum-selling albums. Nothing could stop the Village People at that point, except the fact that right around 1979, 1980, you had a huge, and honestly, largely American-fueled backlash against disco. Rock fans were starting to become completely aggravated with the glossiness and the excess and the honestly, and this is grunting American hick-like nature, the androgynous nature of disco. These things all aroused the ire of rock fans who burned disco records en masse. Jeez. And that happened just weeks before Can't Stop the Music opened in theaters, and the movie sank like a stone. It is one of the most it's one of those movies that is sort of like a cocaine-addled attempt at the same sort of innocent, let's put on a show type of musical that you got with the Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney musicals in the late 30s and early 40s, except it's transposed to a ridiculously sanitized version of the Village People. I mean, the Village People were significant because they were one of the first like homocentric bands that became a big selling, like became embraced by the mainstream, albeit rather naively, because not everybody, amazingly enough, realized that they were gay men acting out gay stereotypes. But yeah, the movie is just, well, it's directed by Nancy Walker, who was Rosie the Bounty paper towel lady in the ancient paper towel commercials. And talk about a weird-ass cast. Steve Guttenberg from the Police Academy movies plays the lead. His character's name is Jack Morel, which is an anglicized version of Jacques Morelli, the producer and songwriter who basically created, was the Svengali behind the Village People. And it also co-stars Bruce Jenner, back when he was Bruce Jenner, as well as Valerie Perrine, one of my favorite kind of 70s blondes who was in the first Superman, had a wonderful supporting turn in Slaughterhouse-5. It's basically about Jack Morel discovering the Village People and making them big stars. And it's absolutely fucking ridiculous.
And also coming out the same year was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yes.
Which is almost... of course, we can't spend too much time about everything in general, but to say that, so you can, disco action or not, we have the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton doing Beatles songs with this incomprehensible plot of trying to jukebox musical
and
through everything
it makes Mamma Mia look like Citizen fucking Kane.
But I just love how absolutely insane it is. Where, all right, how can we fit? All right, the song has Mean Mr. Mustard. Okay, he's the bad guy, and he drives around this tank, and he fights God, played by
George Burns.
George Burns.
And
the person who played, of course, he's played God a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's.
Steve Barton as Dr. Maxwell is...
Well, and the funny thing was, with that movie, it was produced by RSO, Robert Stigwood, or Robert Stigwood's organization, and it was hot off the heels of Saturday Night Fever, which is a massive, epic hit. The only thing that kept Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band from being an epic failure of, catastrophic proportions is, ironically enough, its soundtrack. Because in addition to rather watered-down BG/Peter Frampton cover versions, there are actually a couple of really super strong
Aerosmith's
covers.
Version of Come Together is still playing on the radio.
Yeah. Earth, Wind & Fire's version of Got to Get You Into My Life is terrific. Those two songs were big hits and helped kind of catapult the album itself to pretty sizable hit status.
Isn't it one of the biggest soundtrack albums of all time?
It was up until that point. It was definitely one of the biggest.
Even if the movie's a piece of shit, you get solid Beatle covers. You can't go wrong with that. That's the reason that a lot of people really like Across the Universe. It's just an okay movie, but covers of great songs.
Yeah, and nice. And Julie Taymor, she does some interesting things.
Yeah, I appreciate what she tried for the movie. I don't think it always works, but it does go.
But especially that was her second film, I think.
Yeah, that and Titus.
Titus was her first film, because she has primarily been a stage director. And the movie is one that I actually kind of enjoy almost as one long music video. There's some really cool visuals, some nice covers. Again, I'm not usually a jukebox musical person, but I enjoyed what they did with I Want to Hold Your Hand. I think is really
nice. I like Beautiful. Not Beautiful because it's shot really beautifully.
Yeah, there's some really nice moments in it.
And the Beatles themselves have been used multiple times in other musicals. Their own musicals with Yell Some Medium that people were doing the voices there. Help, Hard Day's Night.
Hard Day's Night
holds up as one of the best movies.
It is one of the great films in the 1960s. But last but not least, on the cocaine-addled quartet is Xanadu, which of all of the movies, I think Xanadu was the first one out of the gate.
1980s is the last. So it was after the other ones.
Yeah.
Same year as the Apple and the other two.
There was a huge, because there were an enormous amount of hit singles off of that record. I think the Xanadu soundtrack preceded the release of the film in a lot of areas. You had the Olivia Newton-John single Magic. You had a couple of ELO songs that were big. You had the title track, of course. And what another interesting attempt at connecting the old school musical with the new, largely thanks to the presence of Gene Kelly, who looks suitably embarrassed in the movie. And again, another absolutely wrong-headed attempt to weld, kind of traditional musical structure and style with rock and roll.
And roller skating.
Exactly.
Like Starlight Express.
Thank you.
Starlight Express, you must confess. Are you here? I'm on roller skates.
All right, let's uncouple from this. And
All right.
The audience's ass.
No, we are not doing any Coke. I promise.
Yeah.
No, but I have reached a point in my tea where the whiskey is definitely in it.
Oh,
Oh,
fair enough.
good,
Found the alcohol.
Found the alcohol!
But I'm really glad we're kind of moving into the weirder musicals. That's where I end up falling from a lot of my stuff. So
Honestly, me too.
Yeah, that's why I like. I don't know. We can talk about Sound of Music if you guys like, but isn't it more fun to talk about Hedwig?
I was gonna say, can we talk about Hedwig, because it's both a stage and a movie musical.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the stage
both
show is
good.
still going strong. Revitalized a couple years ago.
Yeah. Well, and that was its first time on Broadway. It ran off Broadway.
It was off
before
Broadway the
that.
first time around, yeah.
But man, and another show that's designed to be like you're seeing the show and you're living it with.
Yeah, because it's
him,
it's technically a rock album.
Him,
yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing, I will amend slightly my initial commentary on what musicals work for me by saying, in addition to a musical that has a kind of storyline and non-musical portions that are interesting or strong enough to pull me through, even if you cut the musical out. I think that having a kick-ass soundtrack helps, and I love the soundtrack to Hedwig, and I just think.
But
it's
with
awesome.
the musical, the soundtrack is the.
So you're saying you like it both if it works, it has a good musical.
Yeah.
It works as a good non-musical part. So a musical.
I question your understanding of musicals if you say that, only because if you say I like the soundtrack, well, the nature of a musical is really the music. You do, especially contemporary musicals, are leaning away from having the kind of traditional style of we have a scene, we have a song, we have a scene, we have a song.
Then I think my issue is that 99.9% of the music in musicals is like fingernails on a fucking chalkboard for me.
Oh.
So I think there's something about the musical style.
I do.
The piano ballad.
I do
bullshit
question
that
again,
is-
however, though, this to me is because we've said a number of ones that you like. So I feel like this might be I don't like horror films because I don't like slashers or torture porn situation. How many musicals, like contemporary musicals, ones that are considered not just your Rodgers and Hammerstein or whatever, but your contemporary, your new classics, your cutting edge ones, your Pulitzer Prize winning musicals, how many of those have you listened to?
Crickets. Honestly, not an enormous amount.
Because I only say this because growing up, like, my brother he loves his rock music, he loves his alternative, he was a grunge kid, and I got so much shit for him because there is this snobbery that says if you, to like musical theater, to like musicals, is to like a lesser thing. And my counter argument is that is just the same as saying I don't like horror films because I don't like gore.
But it's like, but Danny, just listen to The Wall. Oh, no, it's different.
Well,
Well, that's just it. Then
Well,
when
this
you
is the
start to
thing.
throw, well, what about this? Oh, well, no, that's not the same thing. What about this? Oh, well, that has music
Well,
I like.
let's-
Tommy's doing its own thing, you know?
It's all there. It's all in genre.
Aside from Jesus Christ Superstar, I detest every single note of music I've ever heard from Andrew Lloyd Webber.
One
I
composer.
find,
You didn't love Cats?
I really find the vast majority of Sondheim stuff musically just kind of puts me to sleep.
That's fair.
I have a hard time getting through that.
Two composers.
Hamlish, I'm not hugely fond of
Hamlish?
his. Marvin Hamlish.
Oh, Marvin Hamlish, sorry, yes.
I'm not hugely fond of his work.
Three composers.
See, the thing is,
I could name three directors. Quentin Tarantino. I'm not a huge fan of his behavior. I mean, like,
and this is the thing. I mean, again, I will cop to the fact that I have not been exposed to as much as far as musicals go. My ear does not appreciate the traditional Broadway style kind of piano ballad sort of.
And my argument
belter.
is what you're talking about has not been what we're seeing in musical theater for the most part
But
in the
there's
last couple of decades.
But this is the thing. There is a very homogenized quality when you transpose any sort of rock music. Most of the time, when you transpose rock music to a musical format, it invariably becomes glossier. It becomes less edgy. So I tend to really not have a lot of patience with it, and I know that there's a whole world of stuff that I could likely be opened to that I haven't been opened to yet. And that's why it's nice to be doing this podcast and listening to the two of you wax philosophical and rhapsodic about these things.
Because I'm not saying that you have to, you don't have to like musicals. I just take issue when people say, I don't like them, but don't really listen to them, or because they're basing it on, I mean, again, it's the horror argument. If you are very well familiar with something and you still don't like it, cool. But there's, especially again, the last 20, 30 years, they're like Weber hasn't produced what's considered in theater a good show since Sunset Boulevard. But Sunset Boulevard was post Phantom, I think.
I think so.
Well,
I'm not sure.
And that's kind of considered, at least for me, the last one I can look at and be like, this was a decent piece of theater. And that was the early 90s.
You know where I was.
Again.
So 30 years since Weber has been relevant.
Well, I'll throw out a couple of other blasphemy bombs here and say I detested Rent. And I've heard a significant portion of the Hamilton soundtrack, and I'm not fond of it at all.
Maybe I have to kick you out.
So yeah, that's it. I know I'm out.
I'm kidding.
I also say seeing something makes a difference.
Oh, I would absolutely agree with that. I'm sure.
Because the theater part of it means it's meant to be experienced, but. I mean, again, I'm not saying you have to like musicals. It's just some of the things you've said make me question some of what you've been exposed to. Because you're talking about a lot of... we look at a lot of off-Broadway currently for what we're seeing as developing some of the best stuff, and then it's moving on towards Broadway. You see a really eclectic mix, and there's kind of stuff for everybody.
It's like you have in any other genre.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And it's what's actually playing on Broadway is increasingly stuff that's going to sell to tourists for the most part, which are not musicals. It's why every time I go back, I don't see something on Broadway, because there's not always something on Broadway I want to see. I'll see something off Broadway. But for every... what I saw... Hadestown last time I was back,
brilliant.
Which I love, and again, yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think the music is brilliant. I think
that's currently my wife's obsession right now. That and some Comet thing. I don't know.
Oh, Natasha Pierre! I fucking love Natasha Pierre, because again, it's just stylistically, it's so interesting. The music is fascinating, and it's one of the. It's something different.
So you don't want to go see famous movies now musical?
For the most part, no.
Yeah.
I can think of very... Well, but I mean, that's just it. The vast majority of what is long-running on Broadway are things that sell tickets. The Band's Visit is a good example for me. That show was brilliant. It won the Tony. It was beautiful. And it lasted about a year on Broadway. And it closed. And it's touring now. But it wasn't a show that, even despite winning... multiple Tonys, it was not a show that brought people in the same way Rock of Ages brings people, or Wicked brings people. And
see, I'm not fond of Wicked either.
And again, these are not, to me, what are the most interesting things happening in musical theater. These are shows that are crowd pleasers. These are shows people go and see because they sell tickets. They're commercially accessible. But for a lot of us theater nerds, they are not the things that we are excited about. These are not the things that we are... Natasha Pierre originated off-Broadway. Before that, it originated as workshops and Fringe. Same with Hadestown. They did the live off-Broadway album. It's been in development for the concept album happened, like 15 years ago. And a lot of what Six even was one that came out of the UK. And it developed, I want to say the girls that made it were in college and they took it to Edinburgh Fringe. And so you're seeing stuff coming out of theater festivals, Fringe theater, off-Broadway. That's where you're kind of getting the most interesting stuff. And when you're lucky, it transitions to Broadway and it gets a run. And when you're really lucky, it becomes a big enough of a hit. It sticks around for longer than a year, so you might get to see it. Otherwise, you need titles that bring an audience, which are Disney titles, movie titles, and,
Jukebox
musicals. But most theater people do not like those. And it's also nothing against people who do like jukebox musicals. My dad loves jukebox musicals. But and again, is it my taste? No. But do I appreciate why somebody who doesn't follow theater likes them? Yeah, it's music they recognize. And some people have a hard time getting around the people are bursting into song.
Yes, let's get back to talking about movie musicals of weird stuff. So, Hedwig. It's a wonderful rock musical with great songs that stand on their own. If you can take an album, just like put it out as an album, or that's in the context of the show and the movie, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's making it as he goes, yeah.
And telling his story, but of course Tommy Knows is going and stealing it, which I've seen on stage a couple of different times. And what's funny about that, talking about my dad and musicals, is I showed it to my brother. My brother loved it. And the next day we were driving somewhere. I think we were driving to my grandparents' house, and we put on Hedwig. My dad's like, "Oh, put on a CD." So we put that on. He doesn't listen to the lyrics at all, and he's just then like. And then he's like, "Yeah, that's great." He just bopping along. He was like, "Man, that was great. What was it?" It's like. Something you wouldn't like. Because my dad would definitely not like Hedwig if you knew the concept of it. That's so let's talk about one of our favorite movies from the last couple of years was Anna and the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Horror
talked
musical.
About it. Yeah, we talked about it. We've talked about it a couple times.
A couple different times. Chris's best of.
Sorry.
It's now on Amazon Prime, so
I know.
Yeah, Prime,
I have no excuse.
Check that out. Blah 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 blah. Kind of lost train of thought.
I have a couple of Japanese musicals that I'm very fond of. One of which we've actually, I think, mentioned previously, which is Takashi Miike's Happiness the Katakuri.
That's on my list.
Which is an absolutely delightful bit of dementia. If you're not familiar with the film, well, first of all, it's directed by Takashi Miike, who is the most prolific film director this side of Roger Corman, and then some. How many films has he directed right now?
I don't know.
He's into like 100.
I know. I give you a number, but by tomorrow it'll go by.
Exactly. By tomorrow he'll have 3 more made.
up.
But what's astonishing about Miike is that the better part of the time he kind of hits it, and this is definitely one of those movies that did. Now I must confess this was based on I think a Korean film that had an identical concept, but it's not been very exposed here, so I would not be able to speak to the virtues of the original. I can only speak to the virtues of the one that that I and the two of you as well have seen, which is it's this wonderfully sweet-spirited yet absolutely daft pastiche of traditional musical and Bollywood and black comedy and it's got all these wonderful visual cues for everything from Sound of Music to Bollywood musicals to Dawn of the Dead and every other point in between. There's an incredible amount of sweetness to it alongside the black comedy, and you never know from one minute to the next where the movie's going. But it has, in its own strange way, more heart than and more, I feel like, sincerity than a fair amount of musicals out there. What do you guys have to say about that film?
I like it a decent amount. I haven't seen it in since it came out on DVD, so it's been a
I
while.
have,
So
I
need to
have,
check
I
it
have
out
the
again.
Blu-ray, and it's awesome. I should loan it to you.
Kim, what else?
Are we listing?
Sure.
Sorry.
I know. Just
I
gonna
thought you wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid, but it's kind of seeing where things go from there. Give us a new topic.
Okay. Am I just list? I've got a lot of movies on here I could talk about. Are we looking at musical movies?
They don't have musicals, yeah. I think it's the topic for tonight.
Second Japanese musical, Legend of the Stardust Brothers from 1985.
I need to see that. God, I'm so mad I missed it last year.
It is absolutely wonderful. It was, even in a country that kind of prides itself in embracing really weird ass slices of pop culture, Legend of the Stardust Brothers left Japanese audiences completely and totally confused back when it was made in 1985. And it is a very strange movie. The basic plot line is basically about two different types of musicians. One is a gut level rock and roll rockabilly guy. The other is this very suave new wave singer, and they get together and basically start this strange boy band. And in between that are musical numbers that are just completely off the rails. The movie is very informed by music video style, only it's a lot more extreme and it's a lot more strange. It kind of almost flirts with Phantom of the Paradise territory, although not quite as not quite as trenchantly corrosive. A lot more, very much in keeping with the 80s, a lot more kind of day glow and bright colored, but no less subversive and weird. It's a lot of fun, and it's definitely worth getting a look at. I'm not sure if it's out on video here, but I had the good fortune of seeing it during the Seattle National Film Festival last year. Yeah. And I was absolutely tickled and delighted, and like Happiness the Katakuri, you literally didn't know where it was going to go from one scene to the next.
And going on things saw at SIFT. Did you guys watch Thriller?
I have that on my list. That one's just, it's fun. It's how I wish Disney's would have ended too. That's what I was aiming for.
Yeah, if The Little Mermaid had more, cannibalism,
more
and
viscera.
it was a viscera.
The Little Mermaid
and Polishness.
If Disney had the balls to do it right. No, it's delightful. It's delightful. It's colorful in a weird way, and the music's fun. Yeah.
It's weird as such a humor.
It's
the way
so
it
weird.
looks.
Yes.
It's on Criterion, so it's findable and
But it's you're sometimes you feel like you're in reality, and sometimes you're not. You're in some kind of weird fairy tale, and you're like, okay, I'm fine with
weird
this.
Polish films.
Yes, but
it's on my list, and I know it's on
fun.
Amazon Prime. I'm very eager to see it. And this is like, while we're at it, I'm just gonna blurt out another film musical that I absolutely adore. I'm slowly but surely. This is like me in a conversation I had a couple of years ago with somebody about not giving a damn about spectator sports, and realizing, wow, I really kind of like being in a stadium and seeing a baseball game.
I'm gonna say, for someone who doesn't really like musicals, you're listing a lot of them.
I pride myself in researching well. But I mean, one of the others.
He hasn't seen any of these movies, actually.
One of the other.
The Wikipedias.
There you go. I'm just making it all up. I hate everything. Is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Haven't
Japanese
seen it, so I
film.
can't say.
Well, and it's an interesting, again, because it's entirely song.
Yes, and one of the other things that I think is very fascinating about it is I think people associate traditional musicals with epic storylines and grand gestures. And The Umbrellas of Cherbourg is very much about a relationship that sprouts forth full flower and then just sort of peters out. There's this sense of kind of resigned honesty to the way it ends. And it's really interesting in how it takes a very insular situation, which is this romance and the dissolution of it, and these two people growing up and moving on, and then happening to bump into each other years later. How it takes that very insular scenario and it imbues it with this sense of kind of neo-realist honesty, which is something that you do not get a lot from at least the traditional template of the musical. But even with that in mind, it's also one of the most visually beautiful movies I've ever seen. It's so lovely to look at. And those Michel Legrand songs are just those are musical style songs that kind of make me melt inside a little.
Your description there reminded me of it's not a weird musical by any means, but and I don't think the movie itself is all that good. But in the last 5 years,
the movie's horrible.
Yeah.
The show is good.
The show, yeah, but
the movie, the movie version's awful, but the stage show is great.
Of
the last 5 years.
The last 5 years.
It's
called The Last 5 Years. It's,
this is how ignorant I am.
And Anna Kendrick's in the movie. I can't remember
who's on first. What's on second?
The movie adaptation's horrible, but the musical, the stage show was fantastic.
It if you're not aware, it tells the story of a couple and their lives are from his point of view and from her point of view.
They're each at different points of the relationship. You start with her at the end, and you start with him at the beginning. And they slowly are moving towards each other until they sing one song together where they meet in the middle. And then as it progresses, she's progressing back to the beginning and he's progressing to the end of their relationship. It's really Jason Robert Brown does some really interesting shows.
But so it's essentially their relationship on, but it's all about their relationship.
So it's kind of like applying sort of a Pulp Fiction / Memento structural device to a musical.
Yeah,
in a way.
It's a 2-person show.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful show. The movie version sucks. Please don't watch the movie and think this is what the show is. On stage, it is stunning, and the music is gorgeous. Well, and Parade is another. It's not a movie, but it's another one of his musicals that tells about the murder of Mary Fagan and the Leo Frank case. It's really interesting. This is cheesy. This is not something that's like high art form, but it's a little weird. And it was born out of a writer's strike, which somebody had said something about earlier. Which is Dr. Horrible's Sing Along Blog, which is
it's on my list here.
It's
a different
fun.
way it works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Neil Patrick Harris is just really charming, and Nathan Fillion is fun. I am,
Stand
the
back,
Hammers.
everyone. Here to see. And in the middle of me.
Well, and it's another example. You've got a couple works that I think. Like the South Park musical,
it's a fantastic musical.
Because he understands the structure of the.
Which you see, Trey Parker's on here. That's 3 different times on my list.
One because
there's a guy. Yeah, there's a guy.
Musical.
There's a guy who has a very good understanding of the musical and
structure.
and as such subverts it quite wonderfully.
And later then Book of Mormon, which is again one of the top selling musicals, but it's Dr. Horrible's Sing Along Blog was unique to me because it was born out of the writer's strike. That was why they did it. Everything was shut down. So Joss Whedon and Neil Patrick Harris and a couple other of the people we like to work with got together like, you want to just do this thing? And it spawned something I think is really interesting, which is Commentary the Musical.
Yes, which is great.
Which is fabulous. So they basically, they have I'm sure anyone listening to this knows about Dr. Horrible, but it's the 3 parts. It was released as 3 parts, and then they later made an album of the actors making commentary of it, but it's its own musical.
Yeah, it's on the disc on the DVD Blu-ray if you have that. And it's funny, I've done shadowcasts of Dr. Horrible, but there's one cast who does shadowcast of Dr. Horrible. They also do the shadowcast of Commentary the musical.
Oh,
so
wow!
That's
layers.
So
there's layers there.
That's meta, man.
That's
So it's a shadowcast of a commentary of a movie.
But no, the South Park musical, man, that's good. It's just good.
Yeah, that gets in all the genres, all different ways that approaches.
They've got their Les Mis number with they've got the Uncle Fucka. You've got,
they get
Small Mountain Town.
I love the fact that Blame Canada was nominated for an
freaking Oscar, man.
And to have Robin Williams come out there and say, Now, I wish Uncle Fucker was nominated. That'd be great.
Oh, every so often there's that like you want something to happen because you want them to have to sing it. It was when the Triplets of Belleville song was nominated. Yeah, it's and the song they sang it. I think they sang it for the Oscars in English.
Yes, they did.
But it's in French, and because I remember when I was watching, I was like, "This is not how I'm expecting to hear this song. This is weird listening to this in English." But man, yeah, that's a fun movie too.
Triplets of Bellevue or South Park? Well, both are.
Both are. I'm an unapologetic. I like South Park.
Great.
It's had its problems. It sometimes is rather tone deaf to things, and it's not perfect. But man,
South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut is such a well written music. This as a movie and as it gets the right level sent to it.
He would kick an ass or two. That's what Brian Boitano do. I get it. It's the structure. It hits all those.
I might have to listen to it on the way home now.
I know. Now I'm like, man, I haven't watched that in a long time. I haven't watched it in a long time. I've listened to it every so often. One of the songs pops up out of nowhere when I have it on shuffle of like all of my stuff, and it's a delightful surprise.
But as Tony mentioned earlier, talking about Trey Parker and Matt Stone, Cannibal the Musical is so wonderful. It's a college production, then with what they went back and filmed more.
Yeah. What a triumph of like just pure untethered creativity.
Yeah.
Like at a shockingly young age for these guys. You know,
this is made by whatever money we can get from the pawn shop.
Yeah.
And
let's just do this. I will say one that Stage Fright, which came out a couple years ago. Well, 2014, I think.
2014.
I didn't like it. I like the idea of it.
I liked it. I wanted it to be better. Particularly because you had Meatloaf in there.
Yeah.
I was like, I want this to be better than it is because it should be so cool. It should be camp meets, I don't know, Slasher the Musical. And it
meets the other Stage Fright.
Because camp, talk about again another absolutely delightful. It's it was really Anna Kendrick's in it actually. It's just basically like a theater camp and
not a horror film.
No, it's a weird musical. It's a weird musical about teenagers at a summer performing arts camp, and Anna Kendrick sings "The Ladies Who Lunch," and it's kind of awesome. But no, I really wanted to like it, and I was really disappointed in it that it was not better than it was, which I realized, you're setting high expectations for something that you should not be setting high expectations for.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that the music was all just like the killer with the...
Yeah!
Which is fine for music, but it doesn't really work for that. And it's also like, how is this show working? It's like, your people making this know how a play works, right? Mm-hmm. That always just took me out of it. But Meatloaf is good to hear him sing again. But the first time he sang on film between 1975 and Rocky Horror, and the next time he sang was on film was for Tenacious D in like 2003.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
that's right.
He was in movies, but he didn't sing.
That was the first time he sang from Rocky.
I think Rocky Horror.
Since Rocky,
from Rocky Horror all the way up to
he did not have a
Tenacious D.
musical role until
in Spice.
I guess
You think he was sung in Spice World, but he didn't.
No, that's right.
He had a moment to sing in Spice World, and he did not. Yeah, and Tenacious D is their sophomore. And I like them on that levels in the same way I still like Mallrats. But definitely not great. I picked Destiny, took a second viewing before I actually liked it. But I do, the one thing I did like the first time around, but do like still is the Dave Grohl as the devil at the end. That bit is cool. The rest of it's really iffy. Their TV show was pretty funny for a 17-year-old the first time I watched it. If I regress back to that,
a lot of things are.
It's the same way, it's like the same era of Mallrats.
Well, there's stuff too. I mean, there are things I haven't watched in so long, partially because I don't want to, because I'm afraid if I watch it now, I won't like it.
Yep.
And I would rather hold on to the memory of...
Fair enough.
Thinking it's going to be good. Where's my list?
Like Spice World. Let's get
Don't you disparage
Actually,
Spice
no,
World, son.
I actually like
you
Spice
dare.
World.
Don't you dare.
Spice World is a
gonna
hard day's
dogpile on
night,
your
but
ass,
different.
man.
No, actually, I like Spice World. It's stupid in every
It's
way.
stupid, but
it
it's
knows
wrong.
exactly
It knows
what
exactly
it
what it
is.
is. I
And-
have a deep appreciation for things that know exactly what they are.
Yeah.
Particularly in theater.
So I listened to the How This Get Made for Spice World the other day, and they were just trashing it. I'm like,
That sounds
you
good.
guys watched worse movies than this, that movies that didn't understand how bad they were.
Yeah.
This one knows exactly what it is. I can't believe you guys are just going nuts on it. You know?
Like Josie and the Pussycats.
That's a
which
fun one, yeah.
It's really fun, but it was marketed wrong.
Yeah, and that's a movie that knows exactly what it is.
It knows
Yeah.
exactly what it is, and it went in knowing what it was going to be, and the music's fun. But they
Backdoor lover.
But they marketed it. They marketed it so poorly. People then were like, "I don't understand what I'm seeing. This is not what I thought," and they got mad about it. I feel like we can't talk about some of these musicals and not talk about Repo,
Yeah,
and Devil's
I-
Carnival.
Yeah, I was
and
going to
Devil's
ask what you
Carnival.
guys think of those.
Yeah.
I hate all those, and I don't know what you guys feel about those.
I don't hate them. For me, there are times I listen to something and I'm like, oh, I dig this. And then I see it live or I see it on film and I'm like, I dig this less now. When I first heard Repo, I was like, okay, this is fun. Zydrate Anatomy, that's kind of a cool song. Grave Robber singing Graves really loudly. That's fun. And I love Anthony Stewart Head.
Yeah, he's great.
Because, but watching it, I was like, this.
I honestly feel the same way. I like the music of Repo.
Yeah.
I think the movie itself is an overproduced mess.
Where
they
was
tried
not-
so much. They're throwing everything at the wall and none of it sticks.
and none of it sticks.
And it's just too busy.
I think
None of it sticks to your wall.
Well,
Yeah.
and
It
like
sticks to my wall. I actually like it quite a bit.
I like it. I wanted to like it more than I did, and it's something that it's grown on me a lot. Partially because I like the music and I like the. Paris Hilton has weirdly grown on me in that film.
She's actually good in that movie.
She's good.
She's really effective
Yeah,
in the movie.
and I love Sarah Brightman too. Like she's somebody I'll kind of watch do anything. I think I wanted some different. There was moments where if I wanted them to have more budget to do what they obviously wanted to do with it. I like though. I guess I like it was the same with Devil's Carnival. I thought Devil's Carnival, Hallelujah.
I didn't like either of those from the beginning.
I mean, again, I like the music more than I like the film, partially because that's what I feel like. It's the particularly Devil's Carnival. Devil's Carnival, Hallelujah tries to do a little bit more storyline wise, but Devil's Carnival just wants to have these little vignettes with songs. I enjoy the music. It's why I like what he's been making. Now he's been doing the American Murder song, the murder ballads.
Yeah, something like that.
And I love those. They're fantastic. I went and saw them live a couple times, and they're just basically redoing and remaking the old school murder ballads into more contemporary pieces, and I fucking love it, man. I love old murder ballads.
That is a musical tradition that I adore.
Yeah.
Likewise.
And I like what they're doing with it, and part of what I like is that I feel like this is where he excels, and it's not necessarily in this kind of storytelling and this big overarching story. It's in these little compact stories within a song. We want to tell one story in one song. Because that's what he did well in the Devil's Carnival movies. There's not really a huge storyline to it, but there's some really cool songs. And in all my dreams I drown. That's a cool song. The one about the prick of the scorpion. The prick goes the scorpion or whatever.
I don't remember any of them.
And I mean, again, I like the music.
Maybe I should watch it again just to see if maybe it hits better the second time around.
Well, but it's the films themselves. The films themselves are. I thought the second one. I thought Hallelujah. Partially because you've got what's his butt is God, Paul Sorvino. Yeah, you got him as playing God, and he gets to actually like in the first one he's just in it as a little cameo. In the second one he's a character, and there's more of a plot, and you've got Adam Pascal, who's again a musical theater name. He's a person. But yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate them. I appreciate anything that's trying to also merge horror and musicals, because it's hard to do.
Well,
It's really hard to do.
and the thing is, I think for all of their faults, it is you definitely see like you definitely see an individual's, you see like a non-homogenized sensibility. You see somebody who has a distinctive, even if not successful to everybody, point of view and attempt at creating a piece of art that is not a homogenized and focus group jukebox musical. So for that alone, I think it earned some bonus points. It's very interesting. I am not as much of a musical connoisseur, obviously, as the two of you are, and yet I am actually quite fond of Repo. So maybe that says something. Maybe you have to not be massively schooled in musicals to enjoy it.
I
know many theater
Repo.
heads who love Repo.
Yeah,
so.
I enjoy Repo. I just, part of it too is it was born as a stage show. And I don't know that...
I didn't know that. I thought it was just straight
No,
up.
it was born as a stage show. And that's, I think, what does it for me is that I've seen it as a stage show. And there's some things that don't translate quite right, or I wish they'd done this so this would have translated better. And that's a problem I have a lot of times when I know the stage show before I know a musical. There's certain things it's like reading the book before you see the movie.
Yep.
It's not that you don't like the movie adaptation. It's not that I didn't like the Harry Potter movies, but you read the books first and you're like, oh, I wish they'd done this, and I wish they'd done this, and I wish maybe they could have done this a little more like this. But I like the movie. I just there's some things I wish had maybe been done a little differently. But it's fun, and again, I love the music. I think the music's great, and I love Paul Sorvino popping up doing his opera singer thing.
Hell yes.
And
Anthony Stewart.
Yeah.
Jeez, that guy is like a fucking.
And when
the musicals need to be built around that guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played
awesome.
Frank on Broadway in 2000. It was amazing.
Because he did Chess too.
From this is Sondheim, right?
Chess?
Yeah. Right?
That's
no?
not Sondheim.
Oh,
No.
okay.
One night in Bangkok.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that, but actually, I had no idea that song was from that until like Allison
started singing it.
Well, it gave me this from that. Speaking of horror musicals, something that I'm surprised we haven't mentioned at this point, kind of like one of the bigger ones that everyone knows, that started out as a movie, became a stage show, and it became a really successful movie from there, was Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
And maybe because it's so obvious to me, that's why it's like, let's just not mention.
Because you're thinking, I was like, that didn't start out as a movie. You mean the original
1960
movie?
movie,
Yeah. Nope, you're right.
And then came back in the 80s.
No, it's on my
show,
list. I just hadn't gotten around to it
it's
yet.
like, I was trying to like avoid the bigger things, but it's like at some point, if anywhere listening, like Jen, Eric, or like, why haven't you guys mentioned Little Shop of Horrors?
It's still to this day two of my favorite stage shows I've ever directed. But it's a fun musical, man. It's just fun. Although I'm bummed that the movie changed the ending. I am, because the original ending I think is
I love the original ending, and I like the movie's ending too. I think they both work in their own ways. I hope the new adaptation, if it ever actually happens, it's been rumored.
Now that I see who's attached to it, I don't want it to
Taron
happen.
Egerton's all right. That's what I've,
Scarlett Johansson. She
saw
playing
that.
Asian in this movie?
Yeah.
I'm a little. I think I'm OD'd on her. I like her, and I wish she'd stop talking, because every time she talks, she makes me like her less.
But I think Taron Egerton actually be whoever his last name is would be a good would be actually good to see more. After seeing him as Elton John and when he's doing,
I'm not angry about him.
Yeah,
I don't love Scarlett Johansson as the but the plant too. Whoever they cast is Audrey too.
That's going to be amazing. And please be a puppet. Please be a puppet. Do not CG Audrey too.
That's my other concern.
So we're doing we're doing a remake.
Well,
It's been talked about for a while, but
years.
they announced today that they're talking Taron Egerton and
Scarlett
Johansson.
Wow.
Previously, they're talking
That's
about I heard it was Lady Gaga, but that could have been one of the fake sites. So you never know.
Yeah, she's also, well, I don't know. I feel like she actually fits a little bit more than. I'm not saying I necessarily want her to do it, but she has that kind of I've lived a life in a way that Scarlett Johansson doesn't have quite that same look to her.
I remember reading that when Star is Born came out, and I haven't heard anything about that since then. So
because she may not want to pigeonhole her
it,
stuff to. I mean, she is a singer, but if she may want to try to break away a little from being the I do movie musicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Little Shop is just.
It's
I think it's
fun.
something. Yeah, I think it's something we all watched a lot. Like I know it was on TV
Absolutely.
continually when I was a kid. You know,
Be a dentist.
and it was a seminal musical.
And
for
yes,
sure.
again, like Singing in the Rain, I saw Little Shop of Horrors during its first run in the theater.
In this case,
1986.
It was the 80s, though, right? Yeah.
It was 86. And I remember just being absolutely, okay, again, gee, I don't like movie musicals.
No, you don't.
But I like this one.
I know you don't like movie musicals.
Obviously, I just think it was wonderful that it launched Menken and Ashman's career. One of the reasons why I like it is because it lampoons the kind of traditional musical motifs, and it's just really damn funny. And also, who do they have doing the voice of Audrey 2? Levi Stubbs, the lead singer of one of the great Motown bands ever, is doing the voice of Audrey 2, and it's like, how can you not adore hearing that wonderful booming baritone voice, like growling out those songs, and that makes it even funnier, Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, and of course Steve Martin's utterly scene-stealing.
Oh yeah.
As a dentist.
Well,
Bill Murray in the same scene, and originally Jack Nicholson in the first movie.
Oh, that's right. Well, and every time I'm on my tours and we're heading, I always say, we're heading deeper into Skid Row. I always say, downtown where the guys are rough. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things I say in there is like in the Skid Row, if you're a fan of Little Shop of Horrors, it's playing in your head right now.
You
You're not gonna make
can't
me sing
stop it.
And usually there's one person in the group's like, yeah. And they'll be like, what?
I will start singing it to people if they're not lively enough. I'm like, I will sing this.
But I mentioned Little Shop on my tour too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, because it's just every time I say Skid Row, alarm goes off at 7. I'm like, sorry. I will say a horror movie musical that part of my distaste for it is because of my love of the stage version, which is filmed. And you can watch. There's a couple versions of it.
At least two. I've seen two. I know what you're talking about. So
that are both good. Is Sweeney Todd, and I have feelings. I have feelings about Tim Burton's version, and they're not good feelings.
Just take away all the humor.
I know,
take away all the core stuff.
It is such a funny show, and I don't know where the funny went. Or
it went
how
away
he
with
killed
all
it.
the chorus.
He killed it with the chorus, which is he took a show that is what is 85% of it is sung, maybe more. 85 to 90% of that show is sung.
I think so, something like that.
Yeah, it's almost entirely sung. There's bits, there's little scenes.
I've heard it argued that it is an opera.
Yeah, it is. Well, a lot of
In
Sondheim
their
stuff
show,
goes in that direction, but it is primarily sung, and he took a show that is basically entirely sung, and then cast a bunch of non-singers in your lead parts. And there's shows you can get away with not having singers in the parts. This is not one of them. Mrs. Lovett, if she's boisterous, because Angela Lansbury she doesn't have what I'd consider to be
a great
it fits Mrs. Lovett.
But it fits. Well, and she's a great musical theater actress because she does character parts.
Yeah.
You can get away with your Mrs. Lovett as long as she's boisterous, which I'm sorry, Helena Bonham Carter's a lot of things. She is not. Everything she does is so. It's little. She's a little voice and a little. And it
her
works.
singing was not there. Like same thing when she had Madame
when
Thénardier.
she was Madame Thénardier,
It was
who
like
was this big presence.
where people say like, "Oh, who'd you cast?" And she's the voice that people put after the without thinking that she can't actually hold either of those roles.
No, because she
on paper she very thinnest to paper. She
on the but the like there's nothing like watching the stage version where you've got Angela Lansbury doing Worst Pies of London as she's going at it and making those pies and chasing that imaginary bug, and then the moment she goes talking about her neighbor who's baking pussies into pies, got to hand it to her, what up, goes into pie, and she's those pussy cats are quick. That moment where she acknowledges that she has tried to put it's everything about it is this larger than life character, and I'm sorry, Helena Bonham Carter,
does not get it.
She's larger than life internally, Like, she is. I believe that internally there is this crazy world happening, but other than the external
But
visual...
does it translate as a musical figure? No, it does not.
And the Emma Thompson version that they did recently, like, I know that Brittany did not like it. Brittany with the Horror Honey, she did not like it.
I didn't see that version.
I loved it. I loved what they did. It was a concert style.
Just like the Patti LuPone one that I saw, yeah.
I saw Patti LuPone do it on Broadway, and I have feelings, and I'm not going to talk about
It's like there's a film version of that
Well, you're not a fan
has
of Patti LuPone in general, are you?
Dr. Horrible. Neil Patrick Harris. There's a film one that's Neil Patrick Harris playing Anthony.
Anthony.
That's the one I saw.
Oh, I thought was he Anthony or he was Toby?
Toby, sorry.
I thought it was Toby, yeah.
Sorry.
No, so what's really brilliant about the Emma Thompson one, and people either loved this or hated it, but it was a concert version, and they come out with music stands all dressed in, concert finery. Like, she's got like this long red dress on, and they're putting their music down, and the music starts, and they're all standing there all proper, and the first person who's supposed to be singing, Sweeney, and Sweeney's just kind of looking at him, and he doesn't hit it, he doesn't do it, and they all kind of start looking at him, they're like, what's going on? And he just knocks the music stand over. And so then they all start doing it, and then they take the stage apart, and they're spray painting things, and they're disassembling, and they're pulling things up, and you're like, oh, this is not your mom's PBS broadcast of this. Okay, I'm in. Anyway, it's not. It's filmed. You can watch it. I love it. Not everybody did. I thought it was awesome.
Honestly, Tony might enjoy this. Actually, I saw Sweeney on stage a couple different times.
Yeah.
But in 2007 or 8, I saw it with David Hess playing Sweeney.
No! Oh my God!
He was actually not all that good of a Sweeney Todd. He played it with this weird voice, like. But there's no point when we used to joke. I actually saw it with a couple of my friends that it was like crazy Uncle Sweeney because he almost played like Ed, what's the place Ed plays Mad Hatter. But when he had my last one, because alas, my right arm is complete again. It's like it's his voice that doesn't match. Yeah, I don't know if maybe it's just where we were sitting, the acoustics, or maybe the performance was off that particular night. But we said like. He sounded like he was Roger Rabbit playing Sweeney, and it didn't quite work.
That's
but this is like when he was towards the end of his life, he was kind of sick, so maybe it's not come off that well.
But it's hard too because like Sweeney is the most serious part in the whole show. I mean, he has moments where he cracks jokes. They're usually funny to him. A little priest being kind of the main one, but otherwise he stays very serious with good reason too. But yeah.
He died in 2011, so maybe he's just kind of at that point.
Maybe not as.
But it was cool seeing David Hess on stage, just in Pittsburgh. Yeah,
so Krug from The Last House on the Left played Sweeney Todd. That's absolutely wild.
I mean, from Last House on the Left, and his song there that he can sing.
And he wrote songs for Elvis.
We've not talked about Crybaby, and I feel like
that's on my list here. Yeah,
that's just a damn crime.
Please, Mr. Jailer.
Well, and then, Crybaby, and also, obviously Hairspray.
Right. Yeah.
Show John Waters out of the way.
It was a movie that became a stage show that then became a movie of the stage show of the.
And then there's the live version. And every time I see John Waters, he always talks about how he has like 5 different scripts that he's been paid by other people to write sequels to Hairspray of the stage version, of the musical version, of the movie version. He's written sequels to all of those from people who've asked that not on his own, like where HBO came to him and said, hey, can you write a sequel to something? He does. He gets money from it. He's made more money in recent years writing sequels to Hairspray that don't get produced than anything else.
Funny.
But yeah, go ahead. Hairspray, sorry.
Oh no! Crybaby, Hairspray. I mean, I actually also I really like Hairspray the movie.
Yes.
I'm iffy on it, but only because I saw it right after seeing the stage show, which had so much energy, then the movie had less. But that's
See, I saw the movie first, so for me it was
I saw the musical on Broadway with the original cast, which was fantastic, and I thought it was one of those rare times where the movie was a good adaptation of the musical, and I don't know if that's because the original source material was also a movie, but I felt like it had if there was anything I questioned, it was maybe perhaps whether or not they should have cast John Travolta, although you could tell he was loving it.
Yeah.
He's
more for a name than anything else.
You needed the name. But I also thought Michelle Pfeiffer was great in it.
And I released the girl who played Tracy got more roles after that. Nikki Blonsky.
Yeah, she was fan, and she was one that they got out of a cattle call, like an open call to. But no, I really enjoy, and I have to say I like Queen Latifah as
Motormouth,
as Motormouth, because I understood why they had to make the adjustment to make it work for her, where the rhyming was just they made it into a bit that she had to do, and it worked. No, I think the movie version of that is really
Zac Efron and Michelle
Zac
Bynes
Efron,
and
very well
Amanda
cast,
Bynes
too.
being
Yeah. No, I thought it was delightful.
Yeah, Efron.
In his pre-Bundy years. Now we're in post-Bundy.
But Crybaby's a lot of fun too. Susan Tyrrell, man. She's awesome. Yeah.
Susan
Everyone
Tyrrell,
that's
Tracy Lords,
whoever plays Hatchetface.
Which they made this again into a stage show, I think, too, but it didn't do.
I don't think it. Yeah, they've done that a lot. Like because after Producers was a big hit, they tried it with Young Frankenstein.
Which was
it's hit or miss. It's gonna be a live show soon on one of those like ABC lives. I might watch that then. I've never seen it on stage, but
it's fine. It's kind of it was the Addams Family. I had very similar feelings. Where I was like this is it's generic. It's so generic. It's obviously a cash grab. There's fun moments. I think mostly because I like Nathan Lane too, and Baby New Earth is Morticia. And you're like, it is what it is. It's forgettable. They're very forgettable shows. The Producers is fun. Do I think it's a great show? The movie version's horrible. The musical version, not the original source material.
Gene Wilder, Zero Mostelia.
But I saw the show 3 times on Broadway. The first time because I had tickets with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick.
Ooh.
And and then I saw it again with other actors, and I saw it a third time because I had friends who wanted to desperately see it who were visiting New York, even though I tried to talk them out of it. Because what happened is that the other actors were trying to recreate every bit, every moment, every hand gesture of Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane. And they're not. They're not Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane. And they don't need to be. I got the impression they'd not been allowed to do their own thing. And so everything they did was trying to do an impersonation of Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane. And it did not work for me.
I've seen that happen in a couple of other shows. Like, if I'm talking about Rocky Horror, I've seen Rocky Horror a whole bunch of times on stage. And sometimes this is the movie.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's its own thing.
Yeah.
And when it's its own thing is when it really works. When they want to be the movie, it just falls flat in its face. Occasionally, a couple of scene ones kind of mix it up a little bit, kind of like that's like what people are expecting certain things out of Frank to be Tim Curry-ish, and other people just do their own thing. And when it works really well, it works really well. The best one I saw like really leaned into like the B movie aspect, and that really made it a lot of fun. It was this one in Bristol, Tennessee. But yeah, that's definitely an issue when you have a lot of things that people know the movie of like how do we make it, that's one issue with a lot of the Disney ones when they come through town. It's like I've seen the movie.
The remake they did of the not remake when they did Rocky a couple years ago to do the Rocky kind of live except not really live.
I kind of like that one actually.
I did not, but
it's really divisive. So
I liked the one thing I liked was Eddie. Adam
Lambert.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic, and I thought he was fantastic. I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of the rest of it, but
I don't think it completely works, but I liked it more than a lot of other people did. Like a lot of the Rocky community hated it just for existing. I thought they did a good enough job of like melding the stage show, the movie, and the fan experience, and they had to answer to all three of those at once, and I think they did a decent enough job of mixing them all together. But anyway, that's besides the point. I wanted to bring up, if you guys seen True Stories from David Byrne.
I haven't seen it. I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
It's a fascinating little film. It's actually from mid-'80s. I actually thought it was like 1992 until I looked it up earlier. I was like, oh no, it's like 1984.
Well, David Byrne directed it.
Yeah, he wrote it, directed it, started featuring the music of the Talking Heads.
I'm quite the Talking Heads fan. I've never seen the movie.
It's this curious little film because he's going to he's playing himself and he goes to a small town that is fictional, but and they're putting on a couple pageants and this. That reminds me of like if David Lynch made Waiting for Guffman in a way.
Oh,
but,
wow.
But positive. Like, it's a positive David Lynch movie. You know, because you have the small town and the eccentricities and the oddities of the people who live there and the life that they're going through, but in a positive sense. Where you know, Blue Velvet gets in the nastiness of a small town.
Right.
This gets into like the fun of it, but also showing how quirky and weird people can be. But a loving way. It's definitely something to check out. John Goodman's funny in it. Yeah, he sings a couple songs. He's not a great singer, but it works out. Better than Oliver Reed and Oliver. I mean Tommy and
Oliver.
Or Oliver. Anyway, yeah. So they cut most of the songs in Oliver, thankfully, but not all of them.
This isn't really weird, but it was one that I saw in theaters when I was a kid, and I loved it. Sister Act.
I haven't seen that in ages.
I know. And I haven't seen
It's
it
on
long
Disney
enough
Plus.
that I should because I haven't seen it long enough. It's another one where I'm like, will this live up? But man, I had the soundtrack to that. I used to run around singing those songs. I loved Whoopi. Yeah.
But there's
It was-
a lot of jokes in there that I did not get as a kid, I'm sure. If I go back and watch
know,
it now,
that's-
I'm like, this is probably going to be filthy when I watch this as an adult.
And that can be what's fun sometimes, the jokes you didn't get when you were younger. But Maggie Smith, too.
She's in that? No.
Yep.
She's the Mother Superior.
So long I've seen it.
Mother Superior. And, it's full of that person, but you can't tell as easily because they're all wearing nun habits. But a lot of the nuns are, what's her name?
Kathy Najimy's in
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, I remember her being
and,
in there.
and from I just saw her White Christmas, but she's been in what's her name? She passed away a couple years ago.
Rosemary Clooney.
No, she's the housekeeper at the hotel or this is gonna drive me crazy. Hold on.
Jane Withers.
She died a few.
Wasn't that turned
Kathleen
into
Freeman.
a movie, music, a stage show too?
It was made.
Recently?
Mary Wicks.
Ah.
Yeah. It was made into a stage show. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a fun stage show. It's
Heartbreak Keitel was in that? Huh.
yeah, right?
What's he doing? Something like that.
Did he kill anyone?
He probably killed someone and they needed to... Someone saw him do it. That's why he'd be in the movie.
There's a lot of like when you go back and look at the cast, you're like, oh hey. The stage show's fun. It's again, it's not to me the most memorable of shows, but watching it is fun. It's fun to watch, and then you leave and you're like, wait, what was the music? Oh well, it's fine.
So do any of you guys enjoy the fun of the travesty of a mess that is Grease 2?
Yes.
Every song is about sex.
I was gonna say,
Sex.
let's lose our virginities in a bomb shelter or whatever.
Yeah,
'Cause we're
for
doing,
America.
Let's do it for our country, the red, white, and the
This is
blue.
coming after like procreation.
Although what's funny, it's a lot more in line with the stage version because the stage version's filthy.
Yeah, of Grease.
There's a lot more sex in the stage version. They cleaned that shit up for the movie.
Oh yeah. And what an interesting cast. All of whom have had their various, you have Oscar winner Michelle Pfeiffer, you have almost matinee idol Maxwell Caulfield, and you have Adrian Zemed from T.J. Hooker, who I will argue is absolutely fabulous in Grease 2. I think he's phenomenal in that movie. He's funny, he's charming, and the movie sank like a stone, so he ended up, so his hair ended up becoming more famous and more of a big deal than he did. Which is sad for him. But yeah, that movie is... There's something wonderfully ridiculous about that movie. And I always have a soft spot in my heart for musicals that flop hideously.
Carry the musical!
In general. Which is one of the many reasons why I adore The Apple. Is because these are, there's something incredibly charming about somebody trying really hard and failing. For me, I find that quite endearing and humanizing.
So, but you love from Justin to
I was
Kelly?
going to say, like the masterpiece it is from Justin to Kelly.
Were you really about to say this?
I was.
Jesus Christ, get out of my head.
When as soon as he said that, I was like, flops from Justin to Kelly.
That was ridiculously awful.
In the boat together, staring into the distance.
With no chemistry. Whatsoever.
Which is funny because you see them in interviews and you're like, they get along, but there is
Nothing romantically between them
Although,
at
can I
all.
tell you how much my brain was blown to find out that Justin is now the guy in the Dr. Pepper commercials? It's the sweet one. That one?
Next time I
That's
see a
him.
commercial,
No way.
Yes.
Without
I
the
don't watch
hair,
a
it
lot
looks
of-
different, right?
I don't watch a lot of television, so I had no idea. See, now I'm
I don't
gonna
know.
have to
I
Google
yeah,
this shit.
It's like, yeah, I'm sure. Like Kelly Clarkson still has a career. He just kind of just went away.
Now he's the guy in the Dr. Pepper commercial.
That's interesting. I have to check that out.
Yeah, because I don't remember. I was reading something that referenced it, and I was like, no, it's not. Google, what? That was the progression. No.
I do want to say one other notorious failure of a musical, that Cool as Ice.
Oh, yeah.
Is it really a musical?
Kind of. There's like 3 musical numbers. I had to mention it at some point.
For me, it's like a really ridiculous Dayglow lip fart version of like one of those. It's like an Elvis Presley musical,
Yeah, but it's
or an Elvis Presley vehicle.
Very much.
Yeah.
But it's oh god, it's a blast.
I mean,
Sorry, I just had to mention it.
Can we circle Wicker Man
Ditch
into
the-
that
Yeah,
then?
actually,
Ditch
I wrote
the
down here,
hero.
is Wicker Man
Stick
a
with the
musical?
hero.
Yeah, I was like,
She sings a weird
Yeah.
song in a sexual manner. That's like Madonna, I guess.
There are some I
literally my note is that
I-
does Wicker Man count? It's a major part of it.
yeah.
Well, and he sings while he's...
Yeah.
Is this a spoiler? Can I...
You can spoil a 1973 movie.
I'm just checking. I know how you are spoilers, too.
Yeah.
And when
The
he's,
Beast.
Oh,
when
God.
he's
Not
in-
the Beast!
When he's in
When
the
he's in the-
Wicker and he's... Oh, to
Yeah.
our God! Yeah. Anyway.
But I interrupt you. And it's,
No, that's
Wet
okay.
farts.
Yeah, the only wet farts and cool as ice, cool as ice, wet farts. Yeah, I mean, well, that's a whole other subgenre,
Bad
music.
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, when you contemplate, Elvis did
Oh,
movies that
all
were
those
full of
beach
music.
ones and the
And then there were the beach party movies.
beach party movies.
That's a whole other. I mean, and that's like one of my favorite movies where music is super prominent. Just because I adore the soundtrack, although it's not really a musical in and of itself, is Velvet Goldmine.
Oh, yeah.
Velvet
Yeah.
Goldmine, which has one of the best soundtrack albums.
yeah, those are one of the ones
ever,
with the
ever.
question mark next to it.
Yeah, so on mine too.
Or
it was
about music
Yeah,
without
Yeah.
And
being a
it's,
musical.
I mean that's a whole that's where we start to get into my turf of like rock and roll and punk rock and rock movies, I guess. But what's interesting about that one though is because it's Todd Haynes has such a sense of splashy color to what he does anyway. It's funny because although the movie's not a musical, there are certainly aspects of it that feel like one. The splashiness
It's shot almost like
it is
Yeah.
shot very much like a musical, and how much it relies on songs. Although it's not characters bursting into songs. It's very interesting. But yeah, that's a whole other. I mean, that would be rock movies.
Well, something like Walk the Line, which is a musical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
but
Or
it's
Walk Hard, which is so much fun.
integrating
Or
music.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, Spinal Tap's actually on my list here. It's one of the question mark movies I had on here.
When you're integrating the music as part of the story, that's definitely we talked about this I think before we started recording, but there's a musical version of $1 Million Quartet.
Which I don't know, but sure.
It's the $1 Million Quartet, the album,
The Sun Records record.
Yeah.
I don't know, but sure. I'll look it up.
It was like the all-star. It was.
It was Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis,
Elvis Presley.
and
Oh, okay.
Roy Orbison, maybe.
Was he part of Chaplin Wilburys?
it was
He's in
someone. It
everything.
was someone else. I can't remember who that. It may have been Roy Orbison, but and they like jammed together one night, and you've got this.
Carl Perkins.
Carl Perkins, yes. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
I don't think it's Roy Orbison, but I can't remember who it is.
Who recorded early for Sun, which is
Yeah.
why I got confused.
And they made a stage version of the album, but it's basically like that night that it got recorded. So there is dialogue happening, there's things happening around it, but then they go right to these songs, and it's
Kind of like the Bruce Springsteen thing from a
yeah,
couple years ago.
but it actually, I don't know, for me it worked. It helped. I saw it live with a really good cast, and that helped.
I'm intrigued, honestly. I mean, because I love that record.
Yeah.
I love those artists, and seeing somebody dramatize that in any way, shape, or form seems very interesting.
It was really cool. I took my parents to it whenever it was running on Broadway a number of years ago, and they really enjoy it. Was because you have to find those parent musicals that they will. If it was just my mom and I went and saw Spring Awakening together. We loved it. It was great. And then Legally Blonde, also lovely. But when my dad's with me, I have to be a little bit more selective of what I bring him to. And I was like, I need something that I'm going to enjoy, but also he'll like. And a whole family loved it.
Cool.
Can I point on before... There have been a number of movies, of horror movies, that have become stage shows.
Yeah.
Like... Carrie the Musical.
Yes.
Notorious flop.
Then,
more than once.
Then revisited a couple years ago, right? Didn't anyone do a little bit better?
They tried really hard to fix it, and I maintain that the trouble they're running into is that the most successful versions of these shows are all spoofs and comedies. So, like, there's a Silence of the Lambs musical, and it's fucking
My friend Jesse was in it.
Hysterical.
Jesse Merlin was in he played Hannibal. He also played Dr. Hill in Reanimator the Musical, which is
I was going to say Reanimator the Musical.
directed by Stuart Gordon.
It's
amazing.
Well, who started out as a theater director
Yeah.
anyway, so it makes sense that he's got.
I can't
the feel
even
for that.
think about Reanimator. I do have Evil Dead and
Reanimator the
or
Musical, Toxic
Beetlejuice.
Avenger,
Thank you.
Beetlejuice,
Reefer
Madness, Halloween
Planet
the
Night from
musical.
Outer Space.
But
Yeah.
Reefer Madness was made into
Was
the
made
movie
into
in
a film,
2005.
yeah.
With,
Yeah.
we watched that about 2 months ago.
Yeah, but you have all of these movies that have become musicals with varying levels of success. But the ones that are the most successful are the ones that I think went the comedy route. Heathers also, which is great. Spider Baby.
I love. I know Spider Baby is turned into a
Spider
musical.
Baby is a musical, and it is fun. And Bat Boy is also
Bat Boy's a lot of fun.
Is just a really good time. And then you have the like gothic ones, like your Jekyll and Hydes and your Draculas and your Frankensteins that are eh.
They have been adapted and readapted.
adapted
And
and
even like the
readapted.
version of Draculas that we know now are as adaptations of the stage version.
Exactly, yeah.
And that over the years, that's same thing with Frankenstein.
Okay,
Yeah.
can we talk about Jekyll and Hyde for 5 seconds?
Can we talk about when David Hasselhoff
Yeah,
did it?
Thank you.
that's the only thing. That's the
Exactly.
only thing to talk about.
Oh my god.
That and the song about all the men.
Yes, bring
Bring
on
on the
the
men.
men.
The scene where he's all hided out.
Yeah.
And, oh my god.
And where he's torn, and his torn looks in this direction, and then in this direction, and I'm Jekyll, and I'm Hyde, and I'm Jekyll, and I'm Hyde, and I'm struggling because I'm David Hasselhoff.
Cannot hassle this off.
I cannot hassle this
Don't
golf anymore.
hassle the Hoff.
Don't hassle the Hoff. Oh, it is comedic gold. I remember when I watched it, and I was like, am I being punked right now? Is this serious? Is this... Did they turn it into a comedy?
Well, and this is before he became like really aware of himself as a parody.
As a
before
parody.
he realized his knack for self parody.
This was when he was trying to be legit, and oh, honey, no. But it is brilliant for all the wrong reasons.
I'm looking forward to. I heard he cut a record of like a bunch of like alternative and goth songs.
Nice.
So he does like I think Echo and the Bunnymen and
Nice.
and like other. Anyway, there's something out there, right up there with Pat Boone's heavy metal record.
Huh.
But we're like off the rails, and the train is like plowing through the forest.
Yeah, we've covered most of what I ended up writing down. So
Yeah.
maybe like this Man of La Mancha is alright, and
Oh,
The
yeah,
Woods.
Man of La Mancha.
I like the stage show, and I hated the movie.
Yeah, I'm saying I love the stage show. I'm not.
Why
even
did they
saying
not
the
cast
movie.
Burnett Peters? I don't know. And there is a film stage version of that with her in it that used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it still is or not.
I'll have to look for it.
Another old school musical. Well, not old school, but another musical that I actually am genuinely fond of. Another film musical. I really do have a soft spot in my heart for West Side Story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys what you thought
No.
of the idea
Which
of
has
remaking
one
extra.
of the great supporting casts in musical history. Richard Beimer and Natalie Wood as the leads are serviceable, but when you get into the supporting cast, it's like you've got Russ Campbell
Dustin
as
Hoffman.
Riff, and
Anytime
you've
you
got
get
Rita
Ri-
Moreno.
yeah.
Who,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that woman is just...
Still trucking.
Yes.
And it's one where you do have to kind of watch and be like, I'm gonna not pay attention to the fact that you have all of these Puerto Ricans being played by
White people.
White
around.
people.
Natalie Wood. It's
We always make a joke to it when he yells Maria out, like he's like, and only one woman answers. It's like,
Yeah.
are you sure you're
I
in
know.
the neighborhood?
I don't. It's like you go into Little Italy and you go, Tony.
Yo,
Hey,
hey, watch it.
But yeah, I will admit I saw West Side Story the film very young. I was in grade school, and it was one of the first movie experiences that really powerfully moved me, like powerfully, especially that ending. You know, it's just and but yeah, God, Russ Tamblyn, he's pure gold in that movie. I mean, after seeing that, I was like, no wonder he like had a real career for a few years. You know.
The choreography too is
phenomenal, and the
stunning.
Bernstein score.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
I think that there's something about how beautifully he integrates kind of classical and classic Broadway motifs with Latin American music. I mean, there's just something so wonderful about this score.
I
So
think
that's one of my
they
favorites.
Fidestra of I think other ones have done this too, but also have like you have not Ray Wise, Robert Wise directing like the
West Side Story.
That main part, and then we also
Yeah.
had Jerome Robbins doing the
Yeah.
doing the music parts. You don't have someone who doesn't know how to do this.
Yeah, you don't have a film director trying to.
You have the
direct
film
music
director
by
doing the film
himself.
part, and you have the musical director doing the music part, and I think that's really
why I
balanced
think
really
you have
well.
the success of it is that they are recognizing they're trying to bring together different mediums.
Yes.
And the only way to do that is to have people on either side who know what they're doing.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what Spielberg does for next year's adaptation. It's already been filming. It's in
It's
post-production
been filming,
now.
yeah.
It's,
Wow.
with the guy from Baby Driver, whatever his face is, as Richard Bamer's character, and then Tony. It's Tony. And then, but the Puerto Rican cast is actually Puerto Rican cast this time.
Because they would have got their asses kicked if they didn't.
They would have had their asses handed to them on a paper plate.
I did appreciate when it was a handful of years ago now that they remounted it too on Broadway and they converted a bunch of it where they were speaking both Spanish and English.
Nice.
Like they translated a bunch of the songs because if you were Puerto Rican and you were having a conversation with a fellow Puerto Rican and you were both native to Puerto Rico, you
would
might
not be doing it in English.
You might
most
be
likely.
doing that in Spanish, and they acknowledge that, and so they actually translated chunks of it to integrate Spanish into the musical. So like when she sings "I Feel Pretty," I think it's entirely in Spanish,
Oh, nice.
and it's
Wow.
awesome.
Hopefully the Spielberg version keeps that. That'd be really cool.
I know there's been conversation about it. I don't know if they're following through with it.
So we'll find out next Christmas when it comes out.
Yeah. Oh, we could probably Google it later.
Yeah.
But no, it's I appreciated that when they were trying to remount it as like an acknowledgement of, yeah.
So
Anyway.
now I'm trying to think of other musicals that I like.
So,
I will-
well, there's I think Fiddler on the Roof for 3 hours long moves. It's one of the best paced movies like ever. It's a great movie, but like every time it goes to intermission, like what we were 2 hours into this movie already. Wow.
Well, and again, another a really great director.
Yeah.
Norman Jewison.
Yeah,
who's
who
done
also directed,
so much great
Jesus Christ
Moonstruck
Superstar.
and Jesus Christ Superstar. Yeah.
Cincinnati Kid. Yeah.
Well, I will say it's a problematic piece now. When I was a kid, I loved The King and I.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. And I watch it now, and every time they get to Small House of Uncle Thomas, I cringe. And anytime the king talks,
Yeah.
and also when I realized that Yul Brynner was not Asian, that was a fun moment when I was a teenager. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it kind of needs to stay back then. I don't know why people still put it on, something like that, and like maybe Mr. Gone, stuff like that. That's a whole different conversation. Like, why do we still do these musicals?
Why are some of these are we still doing?
Well, and
them?
it's interesting because I mean, God, of course, racial co-opting and stunt casting by non-ethnics in ethnic roles is going to always be problematic. I adore Yul Brynner, and I think he's kind of amazing in the movie, and he yeah.
It's very much a product of its time.
Yeah, we can watch it as a movie from 1950, but now I think 58. What is it? 61 maybe.
Well, because I saw it when it came through here a couple of years ago, and they've gotten better at least in casting. But it is still problematic.
Yeah.
The same way that Porgy and Bess is problematic with the
Yeah.
way they have characters speaking.
Yes.
But man, the movie was something as a kid that I just watched all the time.
I know, and significantly enough, speaking of miscast or casting people of not correct ethnicities, who's one of the key supporting characters in it? Rita Moreno, as a Siam princess or woman.
Shit, yeah.
And Yul Brynner, so go for the but it I actually saw that at the Fifth Avenue.
Okay, I was worried you were going to say in theaters.
Ages and ages. Yeah, when it first came out.
I think it came through again a couple years back too. But
it was revived on Broadway.
I'm still going to date myself hideously because I saw the Fifth Avenue version with Rudolph Nureyev as the king.
I saw it with Haley Mills as Anna.
Oh my God! Yeah. Wow.
This was I was in high school. I remember when it came through here, and they had Haley Mills playing.
Anna,
and that was like 3/4 of also why.
What would have really been awesome is if Haley's sister Juliet Mills would have been in it.
As which character?
And if they would have kind of made her character, they would have sort of morphed the character of Anna into the character that Juliet Mills plays in Beyond the Door. And
well, there you go.
Vomiting, she would have been vomiting green pea soup.
This is one I can get behind.
Yes, that would have been awesome. To see her doing a lovely minuet dance in a nice, poofy skirt and vomiting green bile. But some of the other, I always, it's interesting, and a lot of people adore The Sound of Music. I don't either.
It's such a bore.
For me, it is very, very dull.
Yeah, it's so boring. It's so boring.
Which is ironic because there's so many elements of it that I love. It's beautifully shot.
Yeah.
The cast, you could not have a better cast. But God, it's just
dull.
Like it's dull and kind of soft and squishy at the center, and I just am not fond of it.
And for me, it's watching it. You're like, okay, I can acknowledge that there's some really nice things technically happening, but it lacks heart, which is a weird thing to say given the content.
I would agree,
but I feel like I always feel so detached when I watch it, when I catch it.
I
because I never sit down and voluntarily watch it.
Back in my day, they would show these things on network TV, and
it's like Easter or something. Used to show this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easter, and I think I want to say it was a Christmas staple, but I don't remember.
Oh, maybe it was Christmas. Yeah.
But yeah, and that was how I saw it.
Yeah.
And and another one that I actually am super fond of would be, The Wizard of Oz, actually.
I'm surprised you went all slowly without mentioning Wizard of Oz.
I thought
it was like kind of a big one.
I'm amazed it's taken us this long to do it. But what was really interesting for me is I saw it very frequently. Again, I'm going to date myself hideously, but back in the 70s, it was shown on network TV.
Yeah.
Like every year. And so by default, if you were a grade school kid, every year up until puberty through the 70s, you saw The Wizard of Oz.
That continued through the 80s.
Yeah, I never watched a lot.
That's how I used to watch it. It was on TV all the time.
I literally probably went, probably 25 years, maybe 30 years between viewings. And then I saw it again about 5 years ago. And I was absolutely transfixed. I was really surprised at how much it worked. And I think a lot of it was there was an interesting primal sentimental value to it because there was a lot that imprinted on me in terms of how it affected me as a child. Watching it today, it's a masterpiece of design.
Yeah.
Visually, it's amazing. I love the cast. I love how dark it is in places. Jesus, there's a giant house lands on top of one of the witches, and you see her dead legs protruding out from under the house. The leading heavy melts when she has water thrown on her. That's street trash. Yeah. That's street trash from 1939.
Well, I will say it's not. Visually, I think it's gorgeous. It's not one that it's a little Sound of Music for me, and part of that is because the most interesting female character is the witch, because Dorothy is just there to react to things. She's fairly passive.
This is true.
And so in terms of strong female characters.
Oh, but you're not fond of Glenda the Good Witch.
No, I'm not.
What a bad
She's a
witch.
manipulative bitch.
Oh, hell yeah.
She could have said in the beginning, "Click your heels together, sweetheart.
She
You
has
can
stuff
go
that you should
home." And she had that. She's a Dumbledore. She has an
I'm
agenda.
gonna point you at something, and you're gonna go do my work.
She has an agenda.
But I watched it again on the IMAX when they released it a couple years ago, and it was
yeah.
astounding. It was
I
like
was-
watching it new.
I was sad that I didn't get a chance to see it on a big screen. I did get to see a lovely letterboxed Blu-ray of it, but I never got a chance
I had
to
the
see it in the theater.
75th anniversary, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a...
But I might be the minority here, but I didn't like The Wiz. I like the idea.
I like
just
the
think
idea.
the
I like
mus-
some of the-
the
I like
music
some of the
goes on like
music.
about twice as long as
Yeah.
it should. And
I
I get bored
think-
during every song. Like, can we move
You know,
on?
it's interesting. we're talking about directors who know how to work with someone who makes musicals.
Yeah.
And with the film adaptation of The Wiz, you have Sidney Lumet, who was great at making almost like journalistic dramas and action movies. So it was really an odd choice when they put him in the director's chair for The Wiz.
From the director,
I just-
12 Angry Men comes at The Wiz.
Why? And I mean,
But
and
again, I posted earlier that, just because you do one thing, you can't do the other. But it is kind of an odd choice.
there is, yeah, and I mean, there is something to be said for that. I mean, there are always exceptions, of course. I mean, obviously, God, did Stanley Donen direct solo the Singin' in the Rain?
Singing there.
I want to say that he did, but I may be wrong. But a lot, and it's interesting that we were talking. I mean, Robert Wise, an old pro, but he, and I think he had Jerome Robbins, basically co-directing West Side Story, but I don't think he had any to be co-directing Sound of Music.
Sing in the Rain has actually Gene Kelly's listed as the one as the
Oh,
co-director.
okay, there, that makes sense. So again, hey, it gets back to you get a guy who is a established and capable film director collaborating with somebody who knows how to direct a musical.
But it's also like John Huston doing Annie.
Oh, Jesus.
Or
Sidney Lumet doing The Wiz.
yeah, or Robert Altman doing Popeye.
God.
But he
got
did Nashville. He
blocked.
did other musical-based things.
Prairie
but-
Home Companion.
Yeah, so he's done. So that's not maybe
I
a
think
stretch
I
for Altman.
blocked out Popeye from my brain.
I need to kind of re-see that. I remember
Did you?
I remember memories of the kid like kind of wafting through, and I heard
You
it's
know
like
what?
a really wild, crazy film that like has so much weird detail that I need to go back. Like apparently every character in that has a full backstory from the comics. That like everything they put a lot of work
and
into
this
it.
is okay. And again, this is going to really shock you guys. I saw it first run in a theater when I was 13 years old.
What?
I know, I did, and I remember at the time, and that's the last time I saw it. I haven't seen it since.
It's 1980.
But I do remember being very struck by it as a design, as a work of design. I mean, it is. There is so much detail in it, and I remember that really, pardon the pun, popping out at me when I saw it the first time. But even at that relatively tender age, realizing that although it had this incredible amount of detail, there just was something that was not quite working about it. Mm-hmm. And it's also really interesting because, I mean, I just, Shelley Duvall was born to play Olive Oyl. She is so perfect in that movie. And I love Paul L. Smith as Bluto. Robin Williams, I mean, I enjoy him in the part.
I can see why they cast him. Maybe
Yeah.
it's the best cast.
But for some reason he doesn't quite stick the landing for me, and I'm not sure why that is. I would be interested in going back. Oh, and Paul Dooley as Wimpy. Hey, there you go. Awesomeness.
I might add it to my. I might add.
See,
if
now
the library has it,
I'm
I'm
like,
gonna get it from the library if they got it.
Again, now one musical that's on my wish list, but is really hard to get hold of, and I don't think it's ever come out on digital on like Blu-ray or DVD or anything like that. But I think it might be on YouTube. In fact, I think it is because I was going to try and cram it in last minute when we decided just this afternoon what the topic would be. Is a movie called Son of Dracula.
Oh yeah.
Which stars Harry Nielsen as Dracula's son and Ringo Starr as Merlin the Magician. It's a 1974 movie, and from what I understand, it's obscure for a reason, but it's one of those fascinating curiosities that's kind of the height, depth, width, and breadth of 70s era drug-addled indulgence. And I've always been intrigued to get a look at it.
Starring and directed by Freddie Jones.
Yay. No, it's directed by Freddie Francis.
This is Freddie Jones.
Oh, Freddie Jones directed it?
Freddie Francis, yeah. I'm sorry, I
Okay,
misread that.
yeah.
It's not Freddie's.
Well, which may explain why, from the director of The Skull, a musical with Harry Nilsson. And Harry Nilsson was one of those guys that I think would have made actually a great composer of musicals, because his work was as informed by Tin Pan Alley standards as it was by kind of Beatles style pop. But that's a whole other horse of another color that'll be galloping off in another film.
Well, it's just about midnight.
Just
so
about
maybe
midnight.
it's been 2 hours and 13 minutes since I'm doing this.
Good.
And there's nothing
Hey,
really to edit out.
as befits a musical.
Yes, goes
A show about musicals, of course.
We have to put in an intermission so people can go pee.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Get a little interact.
And I think for the intermission music, it should be Kim and I singing "Fuck You, Cody."
Maybe I'll do that. I wanted to mention. I can't believe none of you mentioned the masterpiece is glitter. I'm kidding. I'll throw myself out at the way.
See,
But I do
what?
want to say on a positive note, Pirates of Penzance 1981, starring Kevin Kline, is fucking amazing.
It's funny.
It's so stagey, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah.
Because it's like
It leans in.
it's at Shepperton or whatever, and there's like this lean right into the staginess of it. It's like in like operas and Gilbert Sullivan. Kevin Kline is chewing all the scenery, and it's so much fun.
He's just
Check that out. Once is a.
I was gonna say I have one that I still haven't mentioned. Yeah, Once is the music's great. The storyline, when you really think about it, it's kind of messed up.
Yeah, it's all,
but the music's cool.
Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, God, the Blues Brothers, jeez. What a freaking musical lineup on that, man.
Any other
Aretha Franklin.
covers?
I'm gonna give a shout out to Newsies
I haven't
because
seen it.
that was that's a childhood one that
Nor
was
have
just
I.
like it was a Disney like made for TV.
Well, wasn't Christian Bale in that?
Yeah,
At, like,
Christian
age
Bale.
16 or whatever.
And it's gone on to become a Broadway show, and I mean it's super silly. It is what it is, but it's fun and pretty boys dancing.
I know that he was mad because he wasn't made to be a musical, then turned out to be one. And he was like,
And
I
he's
didn't get
like-
Alice. And like, nope. Well, fine.
It's one that like I look back on with fond memories. Because it was one that again I watched as a kid and I loved it. Let's see if there's anything I haven't hit on. I mean, we've talked about Cabaret.
Yeah, I think we mentioned in passing.
We may have mentioned in passing.
It's a great one.
It's classic. I mean, again, it's classic for a reason. There's actually a lot of classics we didn't touch on, but I feel like that's okay.
Yeah, because everyone knows that, knows certain things. Like,
Yeah. One again to avoid just turning this into let's list.
yeah,
every
but we're at the end, so it's
movie
kind of
ever.
like, here's something I want to mention. Yeah.
And I mean, again, there's a lot of ones I watched as a kid. Like I really enjoyed Gypsy when I was younger.
Oh, I didn't think
Both
of
the
Gypsy.
Bette Midler version and the original and the stage show, of course. But no, I think I saw the Bette Midler version first, so I used to prefer that.
Yeah, I've only seen the original. Hello Dolly is
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, Hello Dolly. Can we talk about? We can't not mention the Brandy Whitney Houston version of Cinderella.
It's great.
Which is a masterpiece.
It's truly a good movie.
Because Cinderella's a fun. It's one of the few Roger and Hammersteins I like. Not few. I like more than a few of them. I just give them a hard time. But Whitney Houston is the fairy godmother. Brandy is Cinderella. You got Whoopi married to Victor Garber, who had this adorable son. Jason Alexander is the troubadour dude.
Of whatever he is.
Whatever he is, yeah. He works for people. He works for higher people.
It's like a concierge.
He's the royal concierge. He sings "The Prince is Having a Ball." It's fun. It's a fun made for Disney movie.
And speaking of made for Disney, there's 3 High School Musicals. Varying degrees of quality.
Yeah, there
the
are.
first one's okay.
Yeah, it knows what it is. The kids like, I have to say, like, I enjoy the Descendants movies, man. I think they're fun.
Them.
They're cute. They are what they are, but they're cute. And some of the music's cool, and some of it's not, and
nearly everything Disney is music, as we mentioned at the beginning. It's like we didn't really go into that. It's its own different thing.
It's a total over. And
Disney is its own category.
Well, and the mass production of a lot of their made-for-TV movies, especially, but they're fun.
But even all the animated ones, for the most part.
Yeah.
No one mentioned Cats, which is weird. Basically, all time.
We talked about it a lot, and it was funny because when it came to the topic of weird musicals, I thought it was the first thing that was going to come up for somebody, and so I thought, I'll just wait for somebody else to jump in on it.
The person who was going to talk about it in depth is not shown up this evening, and I still haven't seen the movie version because I like myself too much.
And, I haven't seen Rock and Roll, but popped in a couple of lists.
Rock and Roll?
Oh,
yeah. Then made me wonder if like this heavy metal kind of
I've seen it. Yeah.
count. Yeah. Heavy metals has a heavy.
It's got some
music part of it.
Yeah, Rock and Roll has some very cool. It's got Debbie Harry from Blondie. It's got Cheap Trick. It's got Iggy Pop. It's got Lou Reed. So it's got the street cred. It's not a great movie. And most of those acts are not at their greatest, but it's interesting. It's a fun and interesting little attempt to kind of weld post-apocalyptic science fiction with rock opera,
which then slides into the Ramones in Rock and Roll High School,
School
'79,
which I think is more a rock and roll movie than an actual musical.
Yeah,
which is too bad because it would be really great, There's something, why don't we plunder, especially in New York, you would think, a jukebox musical about, like, all built on Ramones songs would probably...
We never said Moulin Rouge. How did we never say Moulin Rouge?
And I'm literally reading Sacre Bleu from Christopher Moore today, and it came to they mentioned Moulin Rouge. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to mention that on my list, and then I did not.
And it's funny because like a couple of other of his movies had like popped up when I was looking.
I literally watched Strictly Ballroom the other day.
Yeah, yesterday I was thinking of Strictly Ballroom, and I was like, what if I? Oh.
And again, to further chip away at my I hate musicals thing, I love Moulin Rouge.
Oh. I like the first 50 minutes, and then it gets too much. And it's like Bram Stoker's Dracula. There's so much coming at you that eventually I just get tired.
I'm okay with it, but to be fair, I remember the first time I saw it was as a high school theater student, and high school theater students are essentially walking, talking, singing Moulin Rouges. Like, it's a whole lot. You're okay with it for a while, and then it's just too much and you need a break. So, the nostalgia factor is strong there. That being said, I'm not a fan of the stage adaptation.
I didn't know there was one, so learn something new.
Just keep it that way, you'll be better off.
I think it's everything I had on my list. Chorus Line, it's okay. I hate The Greatest Showman. I think it's a piece of shit as a movie. I don't know what the stage show is like at all. I hate Annie in every form. I didn't like Annie to start with. Then the one from a couple years ago was even worse because it butchers everything I did like about it.
I had to direct that once, and I wore earbuds
I was in it.
Whole time.
I was in the stage version. I played 12 different characters.
Kids would come up and ask me questions, and I'd be like, huh?
Are we going to talk about
Motown? Then Dreamgirls is really solid. I like it.
Dreamgirls is kind of symptomatic of why I am reticent about any sort of Broadway musical that tries to co-opt a rock or soul style, because it feels like grandpa trying to put on skinny jeans and be hip.
It's got one good song, which is "And I am telling you, I'm not going." That's the one good song.
And that's the song that won Jennifer Hudson the Oscar.
It is. Although
got her into Cats.
I also don't think she should have won the Oscar for that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But, I'm out of stuff if you guys have anything else for Poltergeist, and then after that
Poltergeist,
Poltergeist. Yeah, I think I've covered all the ones that I would.
I think we mentioned every musical that ever exists.
We haven't.
I know. I know what you mentioned. Carousel or Showboat.
And of course, invariably there will be something that like Moulin Rouge, where it'll be like,
oh yeah, Guys and Dolls.
I've never seen it. I've owned it for years. I've never seen it.
I watch it on Music Man. I mean, we
South Pacific.
Brigadoon. There was a lot of classics we haven't even.
I was in South Pacific in high school. Charlie and Chocolate Factory in various forms, etc., etc. Matilda.
Actually, you could argue Charlie. I mean, Oompa Loompa Doobity Doo. Charlie and Chocolate Factory is technically it's a musical.
Yeah. It's a musical.
Come with me, and we'll be and Candyman. Yeah. Good.
Oh,
Good.
shit. Candyman. Shit.
Like Candyman.
But anyway, I think if we just start listing this,
we need to. Kim needs to sleep. Tony needs to sleep. Bob needs to sleep.
Yeah,
the cat
I guess
needs to stare at us.
And the doll needs to turn on TV in the middle of the night.
She's my homeschool kids want to meet her tomorrow, and so I gotta bring her out.
The doll or the cat?
Probably both. But I'll bring the doll and leave the cat.
But thank you guys for listening through everything, through our singing. Kim has a good voice. I don't. So you got both levels there, and Tony's Tony. Well, Tony worked for an opera.
I am my own category.
But yeah, like us, review us, share us. If you get that 5-star review and give me a title, I will watch it to a certain degree. Not watching the rich porn. Sorry, Cody. I am Bob.
I'm Kim.
I'm Tony.
Check us out, cgeek.com. And
and
fuck you, Cody.
Fuck you, Cody. Good night. Good luck.
Goodbye. Good night. I teach the cat how to